Picture this. You're a kid obsessed with video games, and your ultimate dream is to get sucked right into the TV screen. Anyone who grew up pulling all-nighters in front of a console has wished for that at least once. Back then, the monster taming craze was taking over the world with Pokemon and Digimon. But what if, instead of throwing Pokeballs, you could spawn creatures using any random CD lying around your house? Like popping a Michael Jackson album into your console and watching a bizarre monster pop out? That's the exact genius premise behind today's subject. In Monster Rancher, a hyperactive kid gets pulled into a digital world and ends up leading the most random squad imaginable: a talking eyeball, a stressed out wolf, and a depressed stone colossus. What looks like just another knockoff made to sell toys actually hides some seriously dark lore. We're talking heavy family drama, demonic possession, and explosive battles with a whole lot of heart. That's why today on the channel, we're diving into Monster Rancher, the absurd anime that turned our CD racks into an absolute battlefield. We meet a hyperactive addict named Genki who spends his life playing imaginary monster tournaments while failing miserably at school. After daydreaming through class, this blockhead rushes home, praying to the nerd gods that his new game has arrived. When he finds the package, he decides to wildly kiss the CD before shoving it into the console, proving his virginity is more heavily armored than a battle tank. The game boots up and tells the story of a world where humans keep monsters in discs. But before Genki can skip the cutscenes, the console turns on vacuum cleaner mode and sucks him right into the TV. As soon as he lands on his ass on a stone altar, Genki comes face to face with Suezo, a giant eyeball that immediately tries to swallow him whole. But Genki refuses to get chewed up on the first date, so he reaches deep into the monster's throat and tickles its uvula until he gets spat out. While wiping off the drool, he meets Holly, the girl who controls the eyeball. Before they can properly introduce themselves, a group of jacked black dinos shows up wanting to steal mystery discs. Out of nowhere, Genki puts on his magic rollerblades, throws Holly on his back, and runs away like a speedy coward. At night, after Genki shows off the CD he brought from the real world, Holly deduces that this piece of plastic might contain the Phoenix, the only bird capable of defeating Mu, the supreme villain who turns monsters into bloodthirsty thugs. But the black dinos crash the campfire, wanting the magic disc. Amid the chaos, Genki manages to insert his disc into the altar. The system glows, but instead of a majestic bird, it spits out a bouncing pink blob. The boss dino decides he wants the blob as a pet, but Genki runs the beast over, blows up the entire temple, and escapes with the gang. Safely away from the destruction, Genki looks at the creature, remembers his mom's sweets, and decides to name the thing Muchi, confirming that his brain is guided entirely by his stomach. The pathetic crew continues their journey, and Holly whips out a magic stone to track the next mystery disc. Genki, possessing an ego the size of Jupiter, tries to use the stone too, but fails miserably because magic artifacts don't respond to arrogant brats. To make matters worse, Muchi starts crying from hunger, forcing the group to climb a massive mountain. Genki tries to rollerblade up the slope, slips like an idiot, and has to crawl barefoot through the dirt while Holly carries the spoiled pink blob in her arms. Upon reaching town, they stuff their faces at a restaurant until Suezo whips out an abacus and hands Genki the bill. True to his deadbeat essence, Genki tries to pay for the meal with empty promises, shouting that he's going to defeat Mu and save them all. Instead of cheering, just hearing the villain's name sends the locals into a panic. The cook kicks the team out, the merchants lock their doors, and our group is tossed out onto the street like trash. With nowhere to go, they end up working as pack mules hauling hay for an old farmer named Matthew, who offers them a free roof and food in return. The next morning, guided by the stone through a freak thunderstorm, they find a disc stuck inside a tree split by lightning. Genki, playing the grown-up, tells Muchi to stay with the old folks to stay out of danger. Pink Blob hates the idea and runs away crying in the rain, falling straight into the laps of the black dinos who decide he'd make a great appetizer. But Muchi activates his murderous bowling ball mode, rolling and beating the crap out of the reptile leader until Genki shows up, skating across the treetops. The kid lures the dumb dinosaurs toward a cliff and watches them plummet to their deaths with a smile on his face. Back at the shrine, they unlock the disc, revealing a useless spot dino, which they immediately pawn off on the farmers to take care of. In return, Genki gets a pair of old boots to hide his nasty feet, and Muchi secures his spot on the team by clinging to the boy's cape. Completely ignoring the warnings of a creepy old lady on the road, our group of geniuses enters a dark forest and immediately gets lost. Wandering aimlessly, they stumble upon a ruined castle guarded by a massive golem who just walks right past them. The team decides to follow the walking mountain of stone to a bizarre graveyard, packed with the discs of dead monsters that can never be revived. Genki, acting like a rabid chihuahua, points his finger in the golem's face and accuses the giant of murder, but the big guy just kneels down to show the kid he was trampling a defenseless flower.
Did you put all these monsters here?
The golem reveals that his only job in life is guarding the fallen discs of an ancient war, and since he is overflowing with loneliness, he lets the group camp there. The next morning, Genki tries to recruit the giant to the team, but Golem refuses, making it clear he'd rather water little plants than join a fight club. The peace is short-lived as an army of gels, who look like evil gelatin, decides to invade the place to steal the discs. Genki tries to warn the golem, but they're too late. The gelatin captain blasts the giant in the face with a cannon and ties him to the ground while his lakas loot the graveyard. When the villains start attacking the golem's new friends, the stone giant completely loses his peaceful sanity. He snaps the ropes, charges at the gelatin captain, and delivers a punch so obscenely hard it turns the creature straight into a hard disc. The other gels try to run, but Golem goes into total extermination mode and annihilates every single one of them. Looking at the ground and realizing he just committed a bloodbath, Golem collapses to his knees crying. A colossal tear falls into the dirt, magically making a flower bloom. Seizing the monster's emotional fragility, Genki puts a hand on his shoulder and pulls off the perfect recruitment, adding a depressed killing machine to the party. With a giant boulder now on the team, our group of useless bums continues their search for another mystery disc. But Muchi is starving and decides to chew on the first solid thing he sees, accidentally gnawing on the disc itself. A pink mist pops out of nowhere and knocks everyone out cold in the middle of the woods. A bunch of creepy plant girls, the Weed Sisters, tries to steal the prize, but Genki wakes up in the best way possible, with a pink blob falling heavily on top of him. The villains start shooting seeds, but Golem uses his colossal body as a shield. Realizing the human brain is still good for something, Genki and the giant eyeball build a makeshift catapult out of nowhere, launching a rock that crushes one of the plant girls so hard she instantly turns into a disc, forcing the rest of the weeds to retreat. They arrive at a shrine, but an edgy kid named Alan steals the disc and summons the fearsome worm, a giant grub crawling straight out of the hole to shake the entire earth. The kid proceeds to boss around and abuse his own monster just like your manager at work. Genki freaks out over the animal abuse, but Alan feeds him the classic misunderstood teen excuse and tries to join Moo's dark side. When the plant girls return, Alan throws a net over the heroes, blatantly lying to Holly and Golem. But when his betrayal fails, the villains put the big stone guy to sleep, tie everyone up, and steal Alan's whip. The kid realizes he was played for a fool and orders his giant worm to attack, but the worm has obedience issues and turns against him. The worm shoots needles that conveniently cut the group's ropes. Genki seizes the chance and drop-kicks the plants with his rollerblades. Alan finally understands that the worm just wanted to be his friend, not his slave, and apologizes. The plant girls don't care about teen drama and suck the worm's energy until it completely dries up and turns into a lost disc. The heroes obliterate the plants, and while Alan cries, hugging his dried-up disc, the gang hands him a freshly unlocked baby worm. The kid cries tears of joy with his new pet grub, and the group hits the road again. Holly rubs her magic stone, and the supernatural GPS points to a desert where the group runs into the wild mutt gang, led by every furry's dream, Tiger of the Wind. The blue wolf massacres Genki and Muchi in 2 seconds flat, steals the stone, and bails. Refusing to accept the humiliation, the girl and the giant eyeball track the dog's scent back to his base, only to find that a gang of black dinos was already there doing unrequested renovations. Boss Dino throws a net over the wolf, mops the floor with the rest of the mongrel gang, steals the magic stone, and tosses Tiger into the bottom of a ravine like a bag of trash. Genki finds the broken furry down below. The canine tsundere plays hard to get and refuses human help, but the kid forces bandages on him anyway. During the night, the resentful wolf opens his heart and reveals his tragic backstory, explaining how the villain Moo stole his brother, Grey Wolf. As soon as the sun rises, the wolf ditches the group to play the Lone Ranger. Genki and his troop of misfits raid the dinosaur village to get the stone back, but at the exact right moment, Tiger appears out of absolute nowhere running at the speed of light, hitting the dinosaur with all his might and turning the lizard into a lost disc with a single strike. Realizing that getting beaten up alone isn't fun, the Blue Wolf finally swallows his pride and agrees to join Genki's circus on the quest for the Phoenix. The team's stomachs start growling, and Holly drops the bomb that they are broker than you at the end of the month. They arrive in a town hosting an MMA tournament for monsters at the local coliseum. The giant eyeball chickens out and refuses to fight, so the tsundere wolf Tiger steps into the arena to solve the problem. Tiger absolutely slaughters every opponent without breaking a sweat until he reaches the bracket's final boss, a literal rabbit named Hare. The wolf pins the rabbit to the ground, and Hare starts crying and begging for his life. But when Tiger turns his back out of sheer boredom, the dark Bugs Bunny lands a cowardly sucker punch, knocking the canine out cold. Genki, being a true friend, pockets the second-place prize money while the wolf drools on the floor. When Tiger wakes up and realizes he was played for a sucker, he tries to rip the rabbit in half, but Golem holds the beast back. Later on the street, Hare shows up playing the repentant saint and invites the starving crew to a fancy dinner. They book the presidential suite at a hotel, swallow everything in sight, and pass out on the beds. The next morning, surprise, the rabbit bolted, taking all the group's cash. The team tries to sneak out of the hotel, but gets caught red-handed, resulting in the giant Golem being forced to wear an apron and wash dishes to pay off their astronomical debt. Tiger sniffs out revenge and falls into a pathetic pit trap left by the rabbit, but climbs the wall fueled by pure hatred. The wolf corners Hare on a suspension bridge over a gorge. Ignoring basic physics, Tiger destroys the very bridge he's standing on. The rabbit ends up dangling from a rope screaming for help, and when the rope finally snaps, Tiger runs along the canyon wall like a ninja and saves the bastard. Tiger drags Hare by the neck back to the hotel, pays the bill to free the stone dishwasher, and the treacherous rabbit decides to join the party. Far away, the Dark Lord Mu listens to his minions report on their world domination, but being a good egomaniacal villain, he only cares about global conquest and bounces. Meanwhile, Pixie is ordered to take care of our hyperactive protagonist and his crew, but she has better things to do and just flies off, not giving a crap about her orders. On the road, the protagonist's ADHD strikes again, making him break out of nowhere and get crushed by the stone monkey and the pink blob. They reach a crossroads, and the useless girl tries to use her magic pebble as a GPS, but the stone refuses to work. The kid wants to go left, the blue wolf wants to go right because he refuses to trust a brainless teen's instincts, and the manipulative rabbit agrees with the wolf. So, Golem settles the debate by spinning the giant flying eyeball like a booze bottle in a game of truth or dare. The eye points straight ahead and they march on. Running way too fast, the protagonist hugs his pet blob and plummets off a cliff, landing straight in a village. But the peace doesn't last as evil rabbits dispatched by Pixie show up with a mission to blow up the local dam. The blue wolf fries the rabbits with a shockwave. The whole group beats the crap out of him, and the leader of the invaders lands one final blow on the dam before fleeing with his tail between his legs. With the dam leaking worse than a punctured water balloon, the protagonist tries to plug the holes with his own body, while the calculating rabbit warns them they have exactly 5 minutes before everyone drowns. The rabbit concocts a brilliantly desperate plan: build a new dam. While Golem rips trees out of the ground with bare fists, and the group works like enslaved bricklayers, the kid keeps playing human cork. The old dam bursts. The protagonist uses his pink blob to bounce and land right on the rabbit's head, and the new barrier holds back the flood. However, the structure begins to give way. The protagonist hugs the wooden wall to try and hold back the force of nature through the sheer power of friendship, and soon the whole group, including a background little girl, joins in to push the dam until the breach is closed.
What's he doing?
With the village saved, they receive flowers of gratitude and hit the road again, where the blue wolf finally lets the kid pick the path. He picks left, and they continue their journey. The protagonist wakes up believing the monster world and this whole miserable journey was just a fever dream, only to realize he is still trapped in this nightmare, waking everyone up with his screams of despair. Because the universe loves punishing this group, the rain forces everyone to spend the entire day hiding under a bridge like absolute hobos. With nothing to do but watch water fall, the girl of the group decides to kill time by trauma dumping her childhood on everyone, recounting how her entire village was vaporized by the ultimate villain. She reveals that her dad was banished from the village after losing an election, which led to her crying on a cliff until her grandfather meditated nearby. He noticed the girl was surrounded by floating magic stones and realized she had the gift. Cut to 5 years later, she finds her first mystery disc and unlocks the giant flying eyeball from it. Just 2 years after getting her bizarre monster, the Dark Empire's snake army decides to knock on the village's door wanting to steal her magic stone. Her grandpa shoves his granddaughter into the cellar like she's a valuable prop, shoves the glowing stone into her hands, and goes to face the army. Obviously, the snake leader ignores his plea to back off and orders his lackeys to destroy everything. When the girl and the giant eyeball crawl out of the hole the next morning, the whole village is ash, and only her grandpa is left, conveniently clinging to life by a thread just to deliver his final words. He blames his own prejudice, saying he banished his son because he feared his powers, but that the man could have prevented this massacre. With his last dramatic breath of a disposable NPC, he gives his granddaughter the classic video game quest: find the legendary Phoenix, which can magically turn all evil monsters into docile creatures. After unloading all this emotional baggage onto the group, the protagonist ignores the trauma and says they're definitely going to win in the end. To prove he has hyperactivity issues, he starts dancing like a lunatic. The delusion is so contagious that soon the whole group decides to forget the tragedy and bust a move in the rain. The group's pointless hike is interrupted when they look up at the sky and see a metal bird plummeting to the ground like a brick with wings. They rescue the pilot, who introduces himself as Eddie and won't shut up about his own flight. The protagonist, seeing a chance to stop walking, begs the guy to build a plane for them. After some aggressive negotiations between the floating eyeball, the scammer rabbit, and the pilot, they agree on a budget of 1,000 gold coins. The next day, the crew works on gathering scrap metal, while background villains of the Kudo race find the mechanic pilot and offer a dirty deal. If he sabotages the plane to kill the whole group, they'll leave him alone and line his pockets with gold. At night, after they eat and the pilot refuses to say what's on the other side of the canyon, everyone passes out. Taking advantage of the darkness, the pilot sneaks over to the scrap ship and damages the spirit engine. When morning comes and the gang is ready for takeoff to finally cross the canyon, guilt hits the pilot's conscience. He stops the group from boarding the flying bathtub and confesses he broke the part on purpose because he was being blackmailed. Arriving at the perfect moment to back up his story, the Kudos show up out for blood, while the group beats the crap out of the monsters. The pilot rushes to fix the mess he made of the engine and takes the opportunity to dump some past trauma on the girl. He tells her he was a slave in a sinister quarry, forced to dig up mystery discs, until he built that flying junk pile and flew over the canyon, abandoning all his friends there to rot. With the engine running, the last enemy jumps onto the ship. The pilot goes into suicidal hero mode, tackles the beast, and jumps out of the plane. He manages to catch himself and not become a human pancake on the ground, while the monster falls to infinity because its safety rope magically snaps. The group of misfits takes off, leaving the pilot behind and continuing their journey in their new flying bathtub.
I'm counting on you! All right, my friends, to the north! It's the...
The troop of slackers is crossing the Sky Canyon in a makeshift hot air balloon, but since the group's collective IQ is in the negatives, they run out of fuel halfway across. The balloon starts falling, and the floating giant eyeball amicably suggests the giant stone golem throw himself overboard to lighten the load, but the boulder refuses to commit suicide. So the blue wolf points his snout up and blows a blizzard attack that magically pushes the basket to the other side. Except the idiots forgot to plan how to land the contraption, forcing everyone to jump and kiss the dirt before the iron bird violently explodes against the mountains. Meanwhile, in a random mine, sweaty humans are digging up mystery discs under the watchful eye of ugly monsters, all ordered around by the local dominatrix, Pixie, and her big blue lackey. Guided by the magic stone, our heroes raid the mine, breaking everything in sight, with the pink bubblegum unleashing his special attack of spitting cherry blossoms into the guards' faces. A slave named Mickey convinces the others to flee, warning them that Pixie has the entire region under her stiletto heel. Later, Pixie punishes a useless subordinate by turning him into a junk disc before capturing Mickey and using the poor guy as bait. The villainous duo arrives by carriage, showing off the hostage and demanding surrender. Like good submissives, almost everyone in the group agrees to put stone shackles on their ankles, hoping the villain will keep her promise to release the slave. But when she refuses, the protagonist doesn't think twice before flying punch first right into the woman's face. Big Blue gets so furious seeing his goddess take a hit that he grabs the kid, but Pixie tells him to let go so she can settle the humiliation herself. The pink bubblegum tries to shoot his glowing petals again, but the dominatrix raises a wall of fire that blocks the nonsense before sending the kid and the pink critter flying straight to the bottom of the canyon. The disaster ends with the protagonist carrying his little monster on his back while scaling the cliff with his dignity completely destroyed. After climbing the cliff like a stubborn cockroach, the useless protagonist finds Mickey at death's door and banishes bandages the poor guy up. Meanwhile, the dominatrix villain starts second-guessing her own wickedness just because she got punched in the face. Infiltrating the castle dungeons, the kid insults the guards' mothers to lure them all to the cells, where the blue wolf releases a high-voltage shockwave that fries everyone's brains, letting him steal the keys and free the whole bunch. But on their way out, the lady of the house blocks the path. The kid tries to use the power of friendship to convert the villain, but Pixie tells him to shut up and drops her tragic backstory, revealing that humans enslaved her when she was young and forced her to work in these exact ruins before she led a bloody rebellion. Ignoring the bogus moral lesson, she unleashes her minions, who are promptly crushed by the supercharged group with the help of the freed humans. The real boss battle begins with Pixie and her blue bodyguard riding a dinosaur-drawn carriage. She proves to be their biggest headache, shooting torpedoes at the wolf's snout and frying the giant eyeball with energy beams. But the team's pet boulder decides to shine, turning into a human tornado that obliterates the carriage to pieces. Big Blue starts trading punches with Golem while the pink bubblegum spits his magic petals again, sending the dominatrix flying into the stone wall. When the protagonist starts his cheesy speech about how teamwork always wins, Pixie loses her patience and shoots a torpedo at the ceiling, trying to bury everyone under tons of rubble. Everyone manages to outrun the rock slide except her, forcing the suicidal guy and Big Blue to dive into the impact zone. After the dust settles, the boulder digs the three of them out alive, revealing that the blue bodyguard acted as a human shield. With her arrogance shattered and knowing the great Dark Lord is going to make her pay for this failure with interest, Pixie bitterly says thanks and flees with her tail between her legs. Our band of misfits keeps digging in the dirt for discs under the curious gaze of a weird weed monster, watching everything from behind a rock. After the pink blob unearths another prize, the flying plant runs off to rat the heroes out to the final boss. To find the nearest shrine, the golem grabs the giant eyeball and chucks the poor guy into the air like a carnivorous bowling ball so he can check the map from above. Upon arriving at the site, they revive the disc's creature and unleash a talking monolith, which is literally just a boring black slab, whose only purpose is to give history lessons. The monsters almost die of boredom refusing to listen to the piece of marble, but the girl tells everyone to shut up when the Blackstone mentions the legendary Firebird. The monolith invades everyone's minds with telepathic imagery to show the Pangea era, where ancient humans were just as idiotic as today's. They invented the technology to cram DNA into CDs and used the original monsters as fancy lapdogs. But since humanity is inherently rotten, they started causing disasters and sparking eternal wars until they created Mu, a ridiculous furry beast with horns, wings, and a long neck, born solely to spread chaos. The beast was so full of angst that it destroyed its own birthing room and started corrupting other monsters into becoming thugs. To try and clean up this colossal screw-up, scientists created the Phoenix and invented a magic gate that would separate the beast's mind from its original body. The problem was that the machine was total garbage, suffered a massive short circuit, and accidentally turned absolutely every monster on the planet back into plastic discs, cracking the earth in half and swallowing entire civilizations into the ocean millions of years ago. Since the furry villain is still causing problems in the present, the Black Slab explains that his mind latched onto a new body like a damn parasite. Meanwhile, in the floating castle, the Snitch Plant tells the Dark Lord everything about the girl and her magic stone. The horned villain tries to play it tough, saying he'll handle it personally, but backs out the very next second out of sheer laziness and orders the weed to go kidnap the girl in his place. The flying Black Slab then bids the team farewell to go traumatize other people with its telepathic documentary. Holly's magic compass points west, but before the gang can take a single step, Suezo squints his giant eyeball toward the sun and spots the Dark Lord's floating castle. Genki and Golem puff out their chests to fight, while the cowardly rabbit suggests finding a bush to hide in. However, Mu fires a cosmic laser beam from above and deletes the bushes from existence, making it clear that their only option is to take the beating head on. The boss floats down with his useless goons and demands the magic stone, but Tiger uses the opportunity to demand back child support from his lost brother, only to find out that Mu turned the Grey Wolf into an evil slave. Consumed by hatred, the feline shoots lightning bolts that don't even tickle the villain. The entire team decides to become voluntary punching bags. Golem tries to smash the Dark Lord's head, but gets brutally countered and almost sent to the afterlife. Genki, Hare, and Muchi try their best moves and are swatted away like space junk. Mu smoothly walks up to Holly, casts a sleep spell on her, scoops up her unconscious body, and bails to to his floating castle, leaving the rest of the team lying in the dirt, embracing defeat. Waking up in a damp, depressing cave, Genki gives his typical stubborn protagonist motivational speech, convincing the losers to seek revenge. Tiger leads the group to Falcon, a giant pirate dragon who refuses to be a taxi for kids. But Genki activates his puppy dog eyes, staring into the lizard's very soul, causing the dragon to cave to the emotional blackmail and agree to take them to the skies. Meanwhile, in the flying castle, Holly wakes up and Moo rubs it in her face that he stole her shiny stone. In a moment of pure psychological trauma, the villain takes off his mask and reveals that he is literally her missing father, inviting his daughter to take over the world in a sick family business, while Holly screams in absolute despair. Our band of heroes takes off on the backs of the pirate lizards, ready to invade the fortress and catch another beating. Trapped in the fortress of evil, Holly refuses to accept that her beloved daddy has turned into the devil himself. So, Moo makes a point of telling his tragic origin story, revealing how he went looking for the phoenix, fell into a moldy hole, and found a demonic disc that possessed his body and mind, turning a depressed peasant into the Lord of Darkness. As he wraps up his villainous monologue, our heroes sneak into the sky. The group jumps off the dragon straight into the castle. Suezo tries to use his sense of smell to find the girl by sniffing her fabric, but accidentally pulls a sweaty pair of boxer shorts out of his pocket, rubbing it right on Tiger's nose to see if it helps the search, leaving the feline disgusted by the peculiar aroma. After catching the girl's actual scent, they trample the useless goons down the hallway until they find the boss's room. Inside, Father of the Year hands his own daughter a glowing dagger, gently suggesting she end her own life to spare herself the suffering. Before the trauma can worsen, Golem decides that doors are optional and turns into a wall-drilling tornado, breaching the room. Moo, laughing at their collective stupidity, uses the magic stone to track his original true body and summons a horde of lackeys to slaughter the intruders. The group tries to break the glass window to escape, but the material is made of impenetrable plot armor. Moo grabs Genki like a rag doll, preparing to turn the kid into mashed potatoes, until a colossal blast of fire hits the villain from behind. It's Pixie, who has magically switched sides. The fairy turns coat, torches Moo's back, steals the magic stone back, and shatters the unbreakable glass with the sheer force of hatred in the form of a lightning bolt. The team throws themselves out the window and lands right on the soft backs of the rescue dragons. Moo, in a fit of rage over being betrayed in his own home, throws Pixie into the abyss, but Falcon catches the girl before she becomes a pancake. The Dark Lord ignores their escape, deciding to focus on recovering his original body. On solid ground, the Blue Giant carries his unconscious boss away, and the heroes thank their flying taxi, ready to continue surviving on pure luck. While Moo's castle travels north, our team takes a well-deserved vacation in the forest, where Golem casually munches on rocks like popcorn. Holly channels the energy of her evil dad's dagger and gets the magic stone working, pointing the holy GPS straight in an unexplored direction. They walk until they come face to face with the ocean, a concept so alien to Muchi that Genki has to waste his breath explaining what a lot of salty water is. Hare immediately tries to cook up a pyramid scheme to sell the water and get rich, but they are quickly ambushed by Gali's scaly goons, who jump from the rooftops out for blood. However, before they can get their asses kicked, a cannonball explodes in the villains' faces. Enter Captain Horn, a pirate bearing the exact same bizarre yellow face as Suezo, throwing a giant net over our heroes. After realizing there was no treasure in the town, the one-eyed pirate turns his attention to Holly. He is instantly smitten with her, but Suezo punches him and scolds him. Inside a bar, the sleazy pirate proposes a classic scammer's bet. If he wins at cards, he takes Holly as his wife for a honeymoon. If he loses, he gives the useless group a ride on his boat. Suezo accepts the challenge to play the highly dangerous and deadly game of Old Maid. Horn blatantly tries to cheat by looking at the reflections in his opponent's giant eye and licking the ink off the marked cards with his sticky tongue, but Hare exposes the fraud, humiliating the liar. Before a brawl breaks out over the cheating, the ceiling collapses as the goon monsters invade, forcing everyone to beat a hasty retreat to save their own skins. The cowardly captain agrees to take the team on his boat, boat just to escape the fight. Everyone boards, except Golem, who refuses the ride, revealing that his biggest fear is taking a bath. After enduring violent motivational bullying from his friends, the Stone Colossus gathers his courage, takes an Olympic leap that crushes the pier, and lands on the ship, nearly sinking the whole damn thing to the bottom of the sea but securing the perfect getaway into the unknown. Mu keeps flying north in his floating castle while his body screams for his soul. Just a normal Tuesday in the life of a villain. Down in the ocean, a random fish monster tries to wake up Guji, a pair of giant red eyes in a cave, passing along Gali's order to sink Captain Horn's ship. On the ship, our useless protagonist Genki admires the sea, while the rest of the group scrubs the deck like cheap maids. Horn spends his time being a massive simp, his pupils turning into hearts as he showers Holly with compliments and a treasure chest. Hare immediately drools over the money, proving his only loyalty is to capitalism. Suezo tries to block the captain's aggressive flirting, but gets immediately hit with death threats. Tiger warns them they're in enemy territory, but the real crisis is Golem hugging the mast, terrified of the water. Using 0 brain cells, Horn orders them to throw the rock monster into the sea so he can get used to it. Obviously, Golem sinks like a brick. Genki dives in to save his friend, realizes he has noodle arms, and passes out from lack of air. The crew hauls them both back up, and Horn finally understands that rocks don't float, putting Suezo to work double time. At night, Suezo throws up all his dignity from seasickness. A wave hits the ship and a pack of aquatic monsters attacks, but the crew fires the cannons and sends them running back in tears. The sea demon Guji finally emerges, sporting a massive horn and a terrible attitude. He slaps Horn aside and grabs Holly, squeezing the girl until she screams. Tiger shoots a lightning bolt right at the beast's hard horn, making it drop the hostage. Golem goes full Beyblade mode, punching Guji away. The crew ties the beast up and throws it into a whirlpool, but the monster still tries to bite the ship. Golem simply drives his giant fist into the monster's face, snapping its horn clean off. Back on dry land, Horn hands Genki a map, teleports next to Holly to steal a kiss on the cheek, and vanishes into the horizon, leaving our heroes to continue their miserable trek. Gali throws a tantrum and sends a clown named Joker to assassinate the group. Meanwhile, Tiger and Hare are one insult away from throwing hands because the rabbit refuses to cross the mountain if it costs money, proving he'd rather die rich than live poor. Muchi finds a cave, and Golem casually rips the entrance open. They get lost instantly because the team's collective IQ is in the negatives. Joker starts messing with them, dropping rocks and sending bats until Hare freaks out and abandons the group completely. Genki, unable to accept that anyone would want to be away from him, chases after the rabbit, and the rest of the flock follows. Joker throws a fake fireball to roast them all, but Golem shatters it like glass. The clown then traps everyone in personalized illusions. Tiger fights a fake Mu, Golem sees flowers turn into an ocean, Holly runs from falling daggers, and Genki and Muchi get tied up in chains, probably enjoying the humiliation a little too much. Suezo is just surrounded by giant eyes. Meanwhile, Hare, wandering alone and terrified of water droplets, realizes he's an absolute coward and comes running back. He finds his so-called friends hallucinating, spots the clown, and decides to be useful for once in his life. He kicks Joker, breaking the illusion. The villain retaliates by summoning an army of evil rabbits, which the group slaughters with ease, but the clown manages to pin Tiger down for the final blow. Suddenly, Hare starts glowing, channels his inner martial arts master, and unleashes a dragon kick that sends Joker straight into the ceiling. The cave collapses, crushing the rest of the fake bunnies while our heroes run for their lives. They narrowly escape before a boulder seals the exit. Out in the sunlight, Tiger and Hare finally make amends, only to start screaming at each other about money the very next second, proving that some idiots never learn. Guided by the magic stone, the group enters a sweaty, fly-infested jungle, complaining non-stop. Genki trips over a robot arm lying on the ground, and Suezo decides the best course of action is to give the cold metal a long, wet lick to confirm its authenticity. The protagonist has a burst of hyperactive energy and forces everyone to hunt for the other pieces. They eventually exit the jungle and stumble upon an abandoned futuristic city. Finding ancient vending machines, Tiger casually blows one up with lightning, making it rain juice boxes.
Apple juice, guava juice, orange juice, pineapple.
Before they can chug their prize, sirens wail and 10 flying robots called Hengers surround the area, demanding ID. Suezo, thinking he's a celebrity, tosses them an autographed photo of himself. Shockingly, the robots don't care and open fire. The gang flees like a bunch of cowards, leaving the magic stone and the juice behind. Safe in the bushes, they watch the robots throw their precious belongings into the trash. In the city's junkyard, they find a friendly broken Henger made from the parts they collected earlier. Genki connects some wires in the back, and the robot stands up, emotional that it's finally able to touch itself without short-circuiting. It explains that it gained consciousness, and its robot friends threw it away for having free will. Trying to sneak back into the city, Golem ruins the stealth mission by ripping a massive hole in the ground. Techno Dragon, a giant mechanical boss, shows up to hunt the intruders. Ignoring the mortal danger, the group finds a magic food machine and stuffs their faces with burgers and fried chicken. In the elevator, Henger gets uncomfortably close to Holly, pressing his metal chest against her and bragging about how good it feels to touch her, making Suezo boil with envy. They find the stolen loot in the boss's room, but Henger fails spectacularly trying to grab it all in plain sight. A chase ensues, and Techno Dragon fires a massive wall of flames. Henger heroically acts as a shield and is blown into a million pieces all over again. Outside the city, the robot magically reassembles itself. Genki begs it to join the team, but Henger prefers to stay behind and try to convince his brainwashed friends to stop being slaves to the system, leaving our heroes to hit the road empty-handed once again. While the group of vagrants wanders aimlessly looking for water, the hustler rabbit suggests finding a river. The stone giant decides to help by chucking the useless flying eyeball into the stratosphere, but the creature falls miles behind and starts whining for rescue. After the girl apologizes for almost abandoning the dead weight, the blue wolf and the eye start bickering like two spoiled brats. But the wolf hears a noise and shoves the meatball out of the way just in time to dodge a bunch of knockoff living rocks. These D-list extras introduce themselves as Dokus, goons sent by Gali. The eyeball tries to play hero, gets miserably beaten up, and has to be saved by the rest of the group, proving the rabbit's point. After building a raft of questionable quality, the hyperactive kid tries to force the golem aboard, resulting in the giant sinking into the water and hating every second of his miserable life. Further ahead, the wet stone blocks return, holding hands in a bizarre synchronized swim to surround the raft and divert its course straight toward a deadly waterfall. As gravity does its job and everyone starts plummeting to their deaths, the flying eyeball panics, engulfs everyone in a questionable yellow light, and screams to teleport. The stone goons are already celebrating their victory when the heroes magically spawn midair right on top of them. The eye's flawed teleportation system at least serves to drop the rock giant like a meteor onto the enemies, forcing the villains to suffer their second humiliation of the day. The eyeball tries to show off by attempting to teleport again, but since he's a complete fraud, absolutely nothing happens. Sick of looking at this freak, the rest of the group just walks away, leaving him screaming all alone in the woods. With their raft smashed to pieces, our heroes are forced to march through the jungle until they are ambushed by a pack of disgusting scaly slimes. The group thinks they'll wrap it up quickly, but the gelatinous monsters activate an absurd regeneration hack and beat the crap out of everyone. Luckily for these useless bums, the dominatrix Pixie and her buff blue henchmen appear out of nowhere. The slimes decide to fuse their gooey bodies into an even bigger abomination and focus on the kid and the reformed villainess, pushing them both straight off a cliff, activating the classic anime cliche where the fall never kills anyone. Down below, the horned woman sprains her ankle and can't fly. The stubborn brat forces his help down her throat, and while hiding in the dark, they reach the obvious conclusion that the great Lord of Darkness is looking for his own body in the northern mountains. The next day, the kid carries the injured woman on his back and even saves them both from sinking into a filthy swamp, leaving her impressed by the boy's strength. After cleaning off the grime at a waterfall, they follow a smoke signal thinking it's their friends, but walk straight into the disgusting slime's trap. The monsters offer the woman a chance to crawl back to the villain and beg for forgiveness, but she's already had it. She rejects the humiliating offer and decides to unleash her Big Bang technique. She explodes an absurd amount of energy and disintegrates the entire slime, proving that regeneration means nothing when you're turned to dust. The dominatrix finally accepts the kid into her heart, but still decides to go her own way with the giant blue monster, promising to return. Far away, the masked leader Gali gets so outraged by the incompetence of his goons that he decides to get off his ass and go kill the heroes with his own hands. The troop of misfits finally arrives at the city of Silk. The Flying Eye spends his time mocking the pink blob for not learning new moves, but becomes the joke of the hour when he tries to use his miracle teleportation again, and fails miserably, much like you trying to flirt. They invade Gali's castle, and the masked lord decides to be a great host, offering a lavish banquet that was obviously spiked with knockout drops. Everyone passes out like idiots and is flushed down a sand whirlpool straight into a dirty pit. The villain activates his special move to suck out everyone's life energy, but the pink blob proves that cowardice pays off and hides under a giant Tupperware. While the others wither away on the ground, the pink critter crawls out after a rope, dodging deadly rocks, and taking a beating from the villain until it gets stuck in the escape hole. At that exact moment, the power of friendship injects a magical steroid into the team tossed in the basement, allowing them to break through the floor out of sheer rage for a collective beatdown. Gali summons some sand goons that are instantly pulverized by the team, so the villain decides to crush everyone personally, slamming the giant to the ground and pummeling the rest with cheap shots. The hyperactive kid refuses to take the disrespect, jumps at the villain's face, and kicks his mask with such force that it cracks the guy's ego. Completely unhinged, Gali unleashes a massive hurricane that threatens to bring the very roof down on everyone's heads, but the pink blob decides it's the perfect time to evolve. The bubblegum creature charges an energy cannon straight from its mouth and fires a lethal beam that obliterates Gali once and for all, turning the masked lord into a forgotten disc. The castle collapses from the hurricane, but the team escapes in one piece, marking the humiliating defeat of yet another of the Dark Lord's 4 big stooges. Grey Wolf and his furry goons watch a village burn while the leader complains that slaughtering innocents has lost its appeal. When a lackey informs him that Gali kicked the bucket and that the rebels are in the forest of the Black Worms, the wolf finally finds a reason to smile and orders his crawlers to annihilate the heroes. Far away, our protagonists walk through a creepy forest, where Suezo decides to traumatize the rabbit by turning his own eyelid inside out. The moment of comic relief ends when red eyes glow in the trees and the worms attack. Golem rips a whole chunk out of the ground and plays baseball with the insects, while Tiger pins one down, ready to commit cold-blooded murder. Holly activates her moral superiority mode and stops the slaughter, tying the creature up for an interrogation. The worm confesses that Grey Wolf is the boss, causing Tiger to go into shock over his brother and throw a tantrum, walking away from the group on his own. Taking advantage of the family drama, the worm spits a poison dart at Tiger, but Holly plays the human meat shield, taking the poison for him and passing out with a fever. Tiger runs off in a panic to find miracle berries, chased by Genki. The blue wolf finds the berries on a cliff, but takes a venomous stab from the worm captain who was hiding in ambush. Even poisoned and taking a beating, Tiger fires off a torpedo so absurd, it turns the insect straight into a plastic disc. He swallows the berry, passes out, dreams about his brother, and wakes up startled just in time to save his friends. The worms were about to devour the team at a fake campsite set up by Golem, but Tiger and Genki arrive shooting lightning and frying the competition. Far away from all this destruction, Grey Wolf twitches his ears and pretends that the sound of his lackeys dying is just the breeze in the wind. The useless magic stone orders the team to climb a mountain, and Suezo tries to use a miracle teleportation, only to fail pathetically and draw sighs of disappointment from everyone. Having no idea they are being watched, they drag their exhausted bodies to a stream so they don't die of fatigue. Meanwhile, Grey Wolf sends Ebony, a completely deranged goth clown, along with his gang of sentient pieces of firewood to exterminate the team. The fake trees surround the idiots, and the organic massacre begins. Tiger tries to play savior by going after Genki, but ends up getting steamrolled by the Clown of Darkness. In the middle of the chaotic beatdown, our pink bubblegum ball named Mochi plummets off a cliff and rolls down a hole, breaking into Duckin's basement. This depressed duck reveals he was dumped by his old friends because he's an absolute coward who runs from fights. In a bizarre attempt at stealth, Mochi puts on a ridiculous tree stump cosplay to infiltrate the villain's camp, but Ebony instantly sees through the charade because a pink blob covered in leaves fools absolutely no one. The clown chases the blob down and smashes its face in a one-sided, humiliating duel. It's at this exact moment that the cowardly duck decides to finally grow a spine, tosses a boomerang out of nowhere, and frees the protagonist's friends. With the whole team loose, they team up to beat down the clown and use the mutant trees as campfire wood, forcing the scum to retreat with their tails between their legs. After the brutal victory, the group leaves the mountains, leaving the duck to enjoy his voluntary isolation. The bunch of starving losers arrives at a lake trying to fish so they don't die of starvation. The only thing they manage to pull out of the water gets instantly swallowed by Suezo's giant gaping maw when no one is looking, resulting in an extremely well-deserved group beatdown. To avoid starvation, Hare decides to become a shady entrepreneur and hustle some walnut oil. Meanwhile, our emotionally needy giant boulder named Golem stumbles upon a water spirit called Undine. The water lady flirts with the rock and reveals the location of a secret island where the fish literally jump straight onto your plate. The crew stuffs their faces with seafood, but the blue wolf suspects this fishing trip is way too easy to be true. And as always, he is absolutely right. Undine strips off her clothes to reveal the villain's mark, proving she works for Grey Wolf. She tries to drown everyone in a deadly whirlpool, but Muchi fires his cannon to interrupt the storm. Tiger prepares an attack to blow the water woman to pieces, but Golem plays the White Knight and shields the villain using his own rock body because he relates to her pathetic loneliness. Undine tries to take advantage of this cheap emotional neediness, but Karma acts at the speed of light. She gets too close, slips on the rabbit's slick walnut oil, and falls straight into the blazing fire. Realizing that magic water can also deep fry, she is overcome with divine guilt. The creature decides to fully commit to being a barbecue and spontaneously combusts to redeem herself of her sins, turning her existence into a plastic mystery disc tossed on the ground for Golem to cry over and promise that one day they'll meet again. Our heroes are running from a pack of fire lizards and end up in a ghost town featuring a gladiator arena. There, they meet Centaur, Dragoon, and Celius. The horseman chases away the lizards because he owns the town under Grey Wolf's command, but like any good morally ambiguous NPC, he challenges the group to a monster cockfight. While Tiger whines about being injured, the sneaky Hare and the giant eyeball try to make a run for it, but they trip into a fountain and take a wet plunge. Since they got dirty in the public pool, Celius informs them that they are now forced to fight. Hare goes first against Celius and, being the pathetic coward he always is, cries and begs for mercy. But since Tiger snitches that this is a trick, Celius simply knocks the Hare out cold with a well-placed punch to save himself the headache. When it's Suezo's turn against Dragoon, the eyeball submissively throws his armor away and runs for his life. He decides to jump on the big guy to give him a sloppy, juicy kiss, and the monster gets so disgusted by the idea of swallowing that gross thing's spit that he tries to dodge, trips, falls, and knocks himself out. Yes, the useless eyeball won without doing absolutely anything. Then it's time for our hyperactive protagonist to face the human horse. He uses roller skates and a shield to slide around and avoid taking Centaur's energy blast straight to the face. But before playtime gets interesting, the lizards ambush the arena and blow up the entire grandstand. Genki and Centaur decide to join forces, penetrate the enemy lines, and destroy the invaders together in an absolute slugfest. After Golem bears the weight of solid rocks to protect the rest of the group from being crushed, Centaur is so amazed by the protagonist's ability to take a beating and keep smiling that he decides to ditch the villains and become an honorable warrior, just like when you give up playing support to play DPS. Running away from an electrical storm, the squad of deadbeats decides to hide in a tree, which obviously gets struck by lightning, forcing everyone to make a desperate dash for an abandoned factory in the middle of the forest. The protagonist finds an old computer, boots it up, and learns about Melkarba, an instrumental robot that just happens to be lying in a scrap pile right behind them. But before they can catch their breath, a squad of juggernauts sent by Grey Wolf invades the place, shooting fire everywhere. The heat ends up waking the giant robot, who stands up, identifies the invaders as targets, and wipes the floor with all of them with zero effort. The problem is that the killing machine notices our heroes are also there, and decides it's going to point its long barrel at them too. The blue wolf tries to launch his torpedo. The stone giant tries to penetrate the robot's hull with a tornado, but the machine's armor is too tough and nothing gets through. With no options left other than running around like headless chickens, they are mercilessly hunted through the woods. Golem even tries throwing a whole factory tower on top of the robot, but the metal beast tanks the weight and continues the massacre. That's when Genki decides to handle it barehanded, grabbing a thick, long metal rod and forcefully jamming it into Melkarba's chassis. The rod acts as a lightning rod, drawing a direct strike that fries the machine's circuits and finally makes it collapse to the ground. While the girl and the monsters breathe a sigh of relief for not being turned into roadkill, our protagonist cries in depression because he wasted marvelous technology that could have been used to build bridges for society. Far away, one of the henchmen reports the fiasco to the Grey Wolf, who is so impressed by the group's creativity in using rods to solve problems that he decides to swallow his pride and face the heroes personally. After the Blue Wolf wakes up from a wet dream about his past where he played the tough older brother to a little Grey Wolf, the useless girl consults her magic stone to find the path to the Firebird. But a canine lackey shows up out of nowhere delivering a VIP invitation for a duel to the death. Thinking he's the tragic protagonist of a drama movie, Tiger accepts to go alone. Obviously, the group ignores his wishes and decides to closely tail the beast. On the way, Golem throws the giant eye into the air to scout, but when it's time to catch him, he gets distracted by Muchi and lets poor Suezo kiss the ground hard. Meanwhile, Tiger reaches the top of the mountain and finds his brother, who is now proudly wearing the villain's corporate uniform. Grey Wolf unloads all his resentment, saying Master Mu filled the empty hole in his heart and that his brother is a liar. Tiger tries to use the power of dialogue but ends up surrounded by henchmen and gets zapped with electricity. That's when our heroes boldly breach the arena, shamelessly claiming they were just passing by. The Grey Wolf flips out in a rage and sends his army to attack. Genki hands out headbutts, Golem sends enemies flying, and the giant eye tries to teleport for a backstab, but miscalculates and gets a delicious bite right on his own rear end. In the main event, the two wolves exchange energy fluids and elemental powers until they agree to settle at paws only. But Grey Wolf uses his tail to rub dirt in his brother's face and blind him, a dirty trick Tiger himself taught him. The villain loses his mind with jealousy and goes all in for the finishing blow, but Genki jumps into the middle of the mess just to take a free beating. Fueled by rage, Tiger uses his senses, dodges the fatal attack, and thrusts his own thick horn straight into his brother's forehead, shattering the evil seal. With the evil drained away, Grey Wolf turns into a plastic mystery disc while crying over his past, melting away in the snow. To cap off the tragedy, Mu's lackeys find the Master's original frozen body in a cave, and the villain lets out that classic evil laugh, knowing he'll soon get to use his big, juicy body again. Our completely useless heroes stumble through a forest and step on every possible trap like a bunch of blind idiots. They spot a bizarre furry creature called Color Pandora and decide to chase the thing. Hare is the only one with more than 2 functioning brain cells to dodge the obstacles, and finally corners the furball. But Naga isn't playing around and sends a gigantic stone dragon to turn everyone into fertilizer. A baby Pandora falls from the sky, the dragon attacks mercilessly, and the furry creature fails to catch the flying lizard in its trap. The group visits a creepy shrine filled with mysterious stones that are actually fossilized children. It is revealed that the villains kidnapped the children to train them as gladiators, but they were so weak that they simply turned into stone. Faced with this drama, Hare and Pandora make a bet worthy of degenerate gamblers, agreeing that whoever loses the dragon catching contest will be the other's submissive slave for all eternity. The next morning, the giant reptile returns out for blood. Genki and his crew serve as pathetic human bait and drag the beast to a swamp. Pandora's trap is triggered, but the dragon easily breaks everything and beats the heroes mercilessly. When all seems lost, the Trap Master unleashes an explosive needle attack straight into the flying lizard's wings, making the beast sink into the mud as a permanent swamp decoration. With the monster defeated, the stone babies turn back to flesh and bone. Pandora realizes he lost the bet and gets ready for his life of eternal servitude, but Hare declines the incredibly awkward offer of having a furry servant for the rest of his life. Naga dispatches a squad of mutant crustaceans to slice and dice our protagonists on the shores of the Yellow River, which is only yellow because it's clogged with dirt and possibly monster excrement. Golem panics, knowing a giant rock sinks faster than the group's hopes of victory. The giant eye spots a sketchy restaurant in the middle of nowhere run by a guy named Jim. He serves a plate of spaghetti, but instead of sharing like a civilized being, Tiger shoves all the hot, juicy meatballs down his throat without leaving a single drop for his friends. The gang needs to cross the water and agrees to get extorted for 2,100 gold coins to use Jim's ferry. Genki tries to act like a working adult to help with the boat, but gets called a little kid and reacts by throwing a ridiculous tantrum that only proves the insult right. The lobster squad attacks the vessel, forcing the heroes to retreat to a sandbank where the aquatic monsters flop around like useless fish out of water. The next day, the chase continues on the water, and the crustacean starts sinking the boat for good. Everyone ties themselves to harpoons so they don't become fish food, while Jim seemingly goes down with his ship like a dramatic Titanic extra. Suddenly, the submerged ferry explodes to the surface and crushes the giant lobsters. The heroes mourn the loss of the ferryman until he casually walks up to them in the dark because he was simply swept away by the current and walked all the way back. Genki apologizes for acting like a crybaby, gets a pat on the back to stroke his ego, and the group leaves awkwardly without even saying a proper goodbye. Lost in the jungle, the gang bumps into a colossal stone door. Genki tries to solve the problem by punching the wall with all his might, achieves absolutely nothing other than hurting his own useless hand, and sits on a random rock to cry. Obviously, the rock was the door's secret button, proving he's only good for getting lucky by accident. They head down a dark tunnel and break into a shrine packed with red discs. Convinced they finally found the legendary phoenix, they insert a disc into the system and summon a bizarre monkey named Bossy. What a glorious disappointment. A bunch of angry apes shows up out of nowhere wanting to cancel our heroes for illegal poaching, but soon begin idolizing Bossy, revealing that all those discs were just backups of the exact same divine monkey. While the idiots sleep, a rival tribe of stone apes raids the place, kidnaps the miraculous primate, and takes Holly along just as an unwanted freebie. The heroes wake up in a panic and watch a furry gang war to decide who keeps the food-making machine. Completely ignoring the bloodbath around him, Bossy walks to the edge of a cliff to grab some juicy mangoes and slips straight to his certain death. Holly screams for the tribes to quit whining, forcing all the monkeys to swallow their pride and form a furry human chain to pull their pathetic god back up.
We're all hanging on. Just pull us up.
Peace is sealed, and we find out the stone apes were only there because Naga destroyed their home. As this animal documentary comes to an end, the Dark Lord Mu finally unearths his original monstrous body. Pixie watches everything from hiding, almost soils her magic outfit out of sheer panic, and runs off to warn the squad of slackers about the impending apocalypse. Down in the villainous hellhole, Master Mu's henchmen finally finish digging up his gigantic original body. The big bad tries to slip back into his old meat suit, but the body rejects his soul faster than your credit card getting declined at the end of the month. Meanwhile, the baddies capture Monol, the talking stone, who just wanted to send an urgent message to the evil boss. While chaos ensues, our hyperactive protagonist group stumbles into the ruins of an old amusement park. Even with zero electricity in the place, this squad of deadbeats decides to play on the old rides as if they were 5-year-olds. The pathetic party ends when the Kudo gang launches a surprise attack and kidnaps Muchi, the soft pink gumball. But before the crying starts, the majestic Pixie appears out of nowhere to save the day. She humiliates the entire Kudo gang, saves the pink bubblegum ball, and takes the opportunity to dump a truckload of lore onto everyone's laps. She reveals that Mu finally found his own body, that Big Blue is studying the secrets of the Phoenix, and tells them to keep opposing the Dark Lord before evaporating from existence. Back at the evil construction site, Monol repeats the same sad little story to Mu, trying to convince the egocentric villain that destroying everything makes zero sense. Obviously, Mu ignores the pacifist speech and has a brilliant epiphany. He realizes that the same ancient technology that ripped his soul out can easily shove it back in. Without wasting any time, he orders the baddies to march to the ruins in the Taurus Mountains with a single absurd mission: bring the entire ruins to him. The group bumps into Naiton, an Ammonite monster merchant who decides to pull the scam of the century on these idiots. He sells them a bunch of useless junk: a telescope for Suezo to spy on Holly, a bag of rocks for the melancholic golem, a flying cape for Muchi, boot oil for the protagonist, ointment for Tiger's fur, and a completely busted calculator for hair. The snail even has the audacity to trade a mysterious disc that supposedly contains the Phoenix in exchange for Holly's precious dagger, which she hands over with a heavy heart. When the suckers reach a shrine to unlock the disc, the thing shatters into 1,000 pieces, revealing it's faker than a $3 bill. Immediately after, the magic items reveal their true useless nature. Golem's bag is pure salt, Muchi's cape has the aerodynamics of a brick, Genki's boots break, and the miracle ointment covers the proud tiger's fur in humiliating pink polka dots. Boiling with rage, rage over the feline humiliation, the spotted wolf hunts down the snail and finds the critter cornered by the gelatinous gels, who were also victims of the scam. Tiger scares off the jello and lunges to turn the snail into escargot, but the group's moral compasses prevent the murder, and Nighttime is forced to refund everyone's cash. However, Holly secretly convinces the scammer to steal back her dagger. Nighttime gets the weapon back, but also wakes up the gels, bribes the monsters, and sells out our hero's exact location on a silver platter. That night, the gels ambush the sleeping protagonists and bury them all in the beach sand, waiting for the high tide to swallow the whole group by morning. The idiots finally realize the mollusk's double cross, but manage to escape at the last second, destroying the jellies for good, only to find out that the sneaky snail had actually dropped off the return dagger for Holly. The band of misfits gets absolutely massacred by the terrifying Cat brothers, who make it crystal clear they are way too strong for this pathetic little gang. During the all-out beatdown, the protagonist and his pink gumball are separated from the rest of the group. Getting beaten like a dusty rug, Genki, Suezo, Tiger, and Hare try to fall back, but the psychopathic felines destroy the log bridge and send our gamer kid and his pet plunging straight into the abyss. When the protagonist finally wakes up, he finds out he and Muchi were saved and patched up by an eccentric old guy named Kato. The old man is busy fishing for his dinner and slaps the kid in the face with harsh reality, telling him they don't stand a chance against the murderous furballs. Refusing to accept defeat, Genki starts stalking the old man all the way to his house, begging for the cheat code to beat the villains. Instead of answering, Kato chucks a piece of fruit at the kid's face and warns him that the only way to win is by using surprise attacks and a minimum of logical thinking, which is already asking way too much of our hero. While Holly and the other cowards play hide-and-seek with death in the forest, Genki begins intensive training. Muchi spends the whole day shooting fruit at the kid, who now blocks everything using pads carved by Kato. Seeing the burning determination in the boy's eyes, the old master gets sentimental and drops the big dramatic cliche of the day. The delinquent Cat brothers were his former students before they lost their way. Armed with new armor and cryptic advice, the dynamic duo rushes to save the extras who just got cornered by the cats. When the felines leap in to gut the protagonist, their claws get pathetically stuck in Genki's impenetrable armor. Capitalizing on the total humiliation, Muchi unleashes his Petal Storm, clearing the way for Golem and Tiger to finally lay the smackdown. Defeated and drowning in absolute shame, the cats try to end their own existence, but Kato appears out of nowhere to interrupt the dramatic theater. Crying with regret, the felines beg to go back to licking the old master's boots, wrapping up another day of unhinged chaos. Naga decides he's done playing around and summons his ultimate secret weapon, a fighter named Bajarl, who magically lives inside a giant jug. While our useless protagonists crawl through a desert looking for a city, the flying pot drops from the sky. Bajarl pops out looking like a malnourished Smurf cosplay, and obviously, no one takes the midget seriously. But the shorty proves that size doesn't matter and starts sucking the whole group into his dark, cramped pot like a hyperactive vacuum cleaner. Only Holly and Muchi manage to escape in time and flee to a ghost town, with Bajarl hot on their heels, tripping over his own feet and face-planting into an entire building. Amidst the rubble, Holly finds the local mayor's diary. The text reveals that Bajarl had already partied there before, sucking the townsfolk into his magic hole. The mayor's grand finale was to blow up his own city along with the villain, but he failed miserably, much like his New Year's resolutions. When Bajarl finally corners the two, Holly decides to take up the mantle of municipal terrorism and scatters explosives everywhere. Meanwhile, inside the jar, Tiger drops an absurd ice bomb. The attack freezes Bajarl's bud on the outside, allowing Muchi to push the dwarf straight to the bottom of a well. The pink blob steals the magic pot, but Bajarl breaks free and tries to get his jug back. It's too late, as Holly lights the fuse and blows the entire town sky high, burying the villain under a mountain of rubble. The impact spits Genki and the rest of the crew back out into the real world, just in time to see Pixie and Big Blue on the horizon, while Moo finally manages to rub his soul back into his original body at the final gate. While Moo struggles to stuff his massive soul back into his original body like trying to zip up jeans 2 sizes too small, our heroes reunite with Pixie and Big Blue. The gossiping duo warns them that the big bad is using the final gate to restore himself. Mid-conversation, Pixie realizes a bunch of spy lizards are eavesdropping on them. When Suezo connects the dots and realizes their boss, Naga, was the one who destroyed his village, he tries to play the lone protagonist and teleports to commit homicide.
There it is.
Obviously, the team yanks the Giant Eye's leash to prevent this tactical suicide, and they brainstorm a stealth invasion plan worthy of a deep web Trojan horse. Big Blue hides everyone in a cart to fool the guards with amoeba-level IQ at the castle gate. The disguise goes down the drain fast, and the secondary team stays behind trading punches with the henchmen, while Genki, Holly, Muchi, and Suezo storm the throne room. Naga mops the floor with Genki and Muchi's faces without breaking a sweat, and corners Holly in a locked tower. Pointing her butter knife at him, the girl discovers that her own dear daddy Mu was the one who ordered the massacre of the village. Just as Naga is about to crush Holly into a pulp, Suezo, consumed by rage, strikes the villain with a powerful blow. As Naga tries to rip the critter off his flesh, Muchi cowardly fires a cannon blast right into his back, blasting the monster through the wall and leaving the guy dangling from the edge of the castle. The group tries to grab Naga's hand to save him, but he's way too emo to accept the power of friendship. Delivering a speech about how he walked in the darkness for too long, he lets go and plummets to his death, causing the rest of the henchmen to surrender out of pure second-hand embarrassment. Mu finally finishes slipping into his original meat suit, only to get the notification that Naga kicked the bucket. Pissed off at his own team's incompetence, he decides to hunt down the heroes personally. Meanwhile, our favorite homeless squad is freezing on a snowy mountain, knocking on doors in a village begging for handouts, but they get completely ghosted by everyone. Inside one of the houses, an old man explains to his granddaughter Eve that today is Ogre's Day. He swears the sun god Kelowna will show up to destroy the darkness. Being a child completely devoid of survival instincts, Eve sees a giant blue fireball tearing through the dark sky, assumes it's the freaking sun god, and runs out into the street to give it a hug. Spoiler alert, it wasn't the sun god, it was Mu who snatches the brat on the spot. With the entire village in full panic mode, the Dark Lord confronts Genki's team, dangling the little girl like a keychain and threatening to end her life. In this tense atmosphere, Holly can't handle the guilt anymore and drops the bomb on the group, admitting that the giant demon standing in front of them is literally her father. The heroes are shell-shocked by the live DNA test, but they charge into battle anyway. The result is exactly what you'd expect. Moose smashes all their faces into the ice and even brags that he isn't even trying, humiliating our protagonist in the most embarrassing way possible.
Like I said, you don't stand a chance.
The only saving grace for this squad of failures is that the sun starts to rise. Like a goth vampire who hates vitamin D, Mu loses his strength in the morning light and cowardly retreats, leaving his hostage behind as our heroes are left to lick their wounds and their completely shattered pride. After promising Pixie and Big Blue that they'd see each other again, the group's manipulative hare realizes it's Holly's birthday. To avoid dealing with her while setting up a surprise party, the rabbit ships the girl off to chill under a tree with her giant flying pet eye. While Holly enjoys a break from hard carrying this bunch of deadbeats, the rest of the squad decides to split up and scavenge for food. Obviously, nothing goes right on the first try. Mochi tries to fish and ends up in a death match with his own dinner, while the proud blue wolf nearly loses his dignity fighting dirt-covered potatoes. Meanwhile, our melancholic rock giant goes looking for peaches, but gets distracted doing charity work for the local wildlife, proving he's got a softer heart than you trying to ignore a text from your ex. Genki tries to hunt for mangoes and runs headfirst into random trouble, but by the end of the day, the scrap hunters manage to gather everything to start cooking the biggest feast the jungle has ever seen. Under the tree, Holly takes a nap, dreaming of the days when her dad wasn't a schizophrenic Dark Lord, remembering the magical moment he gave her the little travel pouch she uses to this day. When she wakes back up to reality, the team of incompetents drags the birthday girl to a massive table full of singing, screaming, and carbs. Happiness reigns as they stuff their faces, thinking they're just going to find her dad and everything will be chill, but while the good guys gorge themselves, the Dark Lord decides to play dirty. He summons General Durahan straight from the depths, guaranteeing this little party is going to be incredibly hard to digest. In a dark fortress in the middle of nowhere, the group's newest headache introduces himself as Durahan, a walking tin can in heavy armor. He goes to clock in with his boss, Master Mu, who is now on life support, looking like a 60-year-old chain smoker in a public hospital. When Mu tells him that the Big Four elite got completely wiped out by our pet idiots, Durahan takes it personally and swears to destroy the team himself. Back on his generic villain spaceship, his fairy assistant Leland already suggests stabbing their failed boss in the back and seizing power, proving that loyalty on the dark side lasts less than your paycheck at the end of the month. Durahan actually considers the idea, but prefers to focus on killing the protagonist first, awakening the Endbringer, a buffed-up Cyclops robot straight out of a freeze tube. Meanwhile, our heroes are skipping happily, following Holly's magic stone, until the blue wolf sniffs out disaster. A laser beam tears through the forest and the giant robot lands, while a 3D hologram of Durahan floats down just to deliver that cliché monologue about how everyone is going to die. The team attacks together, but the one-eyed robot wipes the floor with their faces without even sweating its gears, knocking Genki out completely cold. With only the girl left to protect the protagonist's squishy body, Holly runs into a cave, but the exterminator relentlessly hunts her down. Just when she's about to become a statistic, Suezo finally uses his brain, activating his teleportation to drop everyone right in front of her. Genki wakes up from his beauty sleep, grips Holly's pendant tight, and fueled by pure plot juice, spews out a hot, sticky pink energy aura that penetrates the bodies of all his allies, filling the entire squad with his charge. With their muscles pulsating with vigor and pink energy, they smash the Cyclops robot until there's nothing but dust left. Up in the ship, Durahan watches his killing machine turn into scrap metal and promises revenge, realizing that dealing with teenagers fully loaded on the power of friendship is going to be way worse than he thought. The group of unlucky protagonists barely has a second to breathe before they're already being hunted by a pathetic lackey named Chariot, who unleashes his shield dinosaurs on them. Fleeing into the woods, they trip over a gigantic hairy monster named Baku, who is passed out on the ground pretending to be a living toll bridge. The beast wakes up and immediately blocks the path of the flying eye, but the moment he lays eyes on Genki, the big guy develops an instant platonic crush and decides he's going to follow them. Genki actually tries to adopt the needy giant monster, but the wolf ruins the fun, pointing out the beast would be absolute dead weight on their journey, so Genki orders him to sit and stay like an abandoned puppy. Meanwhile, Baku notices the shield dinosaurs invading his territory and simply turns all the invaders into plastic mystery discs without breaking a sweat. Even so, our heroes keep getting cornered by the endless horde, until Chariot shows up in person to oversee the massacre. In the middle of the brawl, Genki proves he is a true combat master by tripping over his own feet on a tiny rock and rolling down the hill like a sack of potatoes. When the dinosaurs rush down to finish the job on the fallen kid, Baku comes flying out of nowhere to save his favorite human. Turns out, Baku used to live with a human family that was brutally murdered by Chariot, and the dead little boy had the exact same generic face as Genki. Driven by pent-up hatred and unresolved trauma, Baku ruthlessly caves in Chariot's face and wins the fight, but takes a lethal blow in the process. Bleeding to death, the massive beast drags himself to his ruined former home. Genki walks into the rubble, finds an old photo, and discovers he is the spitting image of the monster's deceased former owner. With Holly and the rest of the squad watching the inevitable tragedy, Genki hugs Baku's giant body as the life drains out of him until the monster shrivels up and turns into a cold plastic disc, handing our boy a nice bonus trauma to carry for the rest of the season. General Durahan pulls a bizarre metallic jelly out of the freezer, calling this abomination Metal Gel, and orders him to obliterate the group of heroes along with an army of night mochis. Meanwhile, our favorite idiots are lost in the desert until they stumble upon ruins being excavated by a girl named Colt. She tries to explain that this rubble belonged to the Pendant civilization, who used the magic stone to play engineers, but she quickly realizes she's dealing with zoo animals. Golem tries to chew on an ancient stone slab, Tiger sharpens his claws on ancient history, and Suezo crushes relics just with his own body weight. When Genki discovers a building bearing the villain's symbol, the nerdy archaeologist reveals that the emblem was stolen from the Pendants, and that this civilization's past screw-ups created the Dark Lord Mu. To make the identity crisis worse, she points out that the dagger belonging to Holly's dad proves the girl is a direct descendant of this failed civilization. But before group therapy can begin, Metal Gel launches his ambush, jiggling his gelatinous body that is magically immune to physical attacks. Things really go down the drain when the Night Mochis arrive shooting without mercy, forcing the group to retreat into the depths of the ruins to avoid being machine gunned by Mochi's militarized copies. Inside, Holly's stone accidentally powers up the local machinery, trapping the girl in an energy field until Golem scoops her up in his arms. Genki realizes they are in a modification factory, sending Mochi into a deep depression, imagining his friends inside test tubes. The evil jelly invades the lab, but the pink soldiers are completely confused upon seeing their bottled clones. Ignoring his own troops' existential crisis, Metal Gel orders them to fire anyway. The obvious result is that stray shots hit the machines, triggering a chain reaction that blows up the factory and vaporizes all the villains at once. Colt and the heroes escape coughing up dust and use the fresh trauma of a clone genocide as motivation to fix the world before waving goodbye to the archaeologist. After walking all day like aimless nomads, the group decides to rest in the woods. Pear immediately rigs up a crooked gambling game by scribbling on the ground to decide who hunts for dinner. He hides 3 lethal marks under the leaves, tricking Golem, Suezo, and Mochi into falling for it. But a gust of wind exposes the fraud, and while everyone is cursing out the scammer rabbit, Tiger shocks humanity by volunteering to go, and even lets Mochi ride on his soft back. While Genki follows the blue wolf, Suezo's giant eye spots a suspicious canine monster named Jagged Hound, who recites his assassin script and bails as soon as the hunting trio returns. Tiger sprints after the mutt, leaving Genki eating his dust on the ridge. Far away, Jagged Hound cries his eyes out to the sadistic fairy Lilim, who is holding a hostage and threatening to turn them into pate unless he kills our heroes. Equipped with a squad of evil rabbits as backup, the stray dog runs into Tiger by a rock and barks out his tragic adoption story, revealing the whole village was turned to ash and he just wants the kid back. When a rabbit tries to rush the assassination, Tiger charges his torpedo attack and the screen flashes in a cheap fade to white. Next thing we know, Jagged drops a plastic disc into Lilim's lap, swearing it's the wolf's compressed corpse. Genki arrives screaming for revenge, but before the brawl can start, Tiger resurrects from the dead with the baby hanging from his mouth, wiping the rabbits off the map in the blink of an eye. The bastard reveals he pulverized the spy rabbit and used its disc to fake his own death. Lilim freaks out over getting played and sneaks away. At sunset, Jagged heads out with the baby, far from the chaos. Meanwhile, the group figures out that Tiger made up a fake diet just so he wouldn't have to admit he had a soft heart, earning him glaring looks of judgment for being a compulsive liar. Durahan, tired of bossing incompetence around, summons a bunch of space monsters led by Captain Astro, demanding they bring him the magic stone by any means necessary. The alien squad chases Genki and his crew with so much hatred that the heroes run out of breath and are forced to hide inside a ruined spaceship just to avoid turning into Swiss cheese. Wandering through the cosmic junkyard, they stumble into a room that looks identical to a maximum security prison, coming face to face with Captain Astro himself. Wasting no time, the alien launches into a depressing monologue, revealing his race spent generations working themselves to death as slaves for ancient humans, which obviously resulted in some massive resentment. With blood in his eyes, Astro charges at Genki and Holly, forcing the monsters of the group to become a meat shield to prevent a massacre. In the midst of the chaos between the hyperactive kid and the traumatized alien, the ship's rotting structure finally gives out. A massive tank randomly ruptures, unleashing a torrent of mysterious fluid that sweeps Captain Astro away like a flushed piece of toilet paper. In a fit of suicidal protagonist syndrome, Genki dives into the nasty sludge to save the guy who tried to dismantle him 5 seconds ago. Astro is so flabbergasted by this display of empathy that all his resentment from centuries of slavery just evaporates into thin air. Completely tamed by the power of the script, he begs his subordinates to drop the revenge gig and live in peace, before simply shrinking and turning into a stone disc on the spotless floor. The group gives thanks for the miracle and moves on. In a fortress darker than your browsing history, the goth fairy Pixie throws it in Durahan's face that Boss Moo is going to cancel his subscription to life if he doesn't find at least one decent monster. Confident in his size, Durahan rubs his mystery disc and summons Ranocraft, the Sand Assassin, a beast that makes up for a lack of personality with sheer aggression. Meanwhile, our troop of deadbeats has been starving for over a day, whining exactly like you do when the Wi-Fi goes down. Tiger sniffs out an apple, but the joy is short-lived because there's only one damn fruit hanging from the tree. The classic screaming match kicks off to see who gets to swallow the whole thing. In the middle of the mess, useless Mochi tries to grab the apple and ends up knocking it straight down a deep hole where it will never be seen again. Genki throws a spoiled brat tantrum and blames the pink blob. The group splits in half. Holly feels bad for the crying Mochi and takes him along with Tiger, while Genki, the master of wounded pride, drags the rest of the circus in the opposite opposite direction. But stupidity comes at a price. The two halves of the group are soon being brutally hunted by Durahan's sand shark. The chase forces the idiots to reunite at the edge of a cliff, where Ranocraft blasts Mochi straight toward a skinny stone pillar that's about to collapse. Seeing his pink blob about to turn into mashed potatoes, Genki realizes he's been a massive jerk. He grabs the remnants of an old wagon, rigs an improvised board, and turns into a pro skater, surfing the sand to rescue Mochi at the last possible millisecond. With the power of friendship restored, the whole squad unleashes maximum force on the monster and destroys it for good, revealing the threat was just hollow armor, exactly like its head. After this humiliation, they stumble upon an entire orchard. Genki swallows his pride to apologize,
I said sorry.
and they all spend the rest of the day stuffing their faces with apples until they can't take it anymore. The disposable lackeys known as Weeds realize they need the magic stone to resurrect the hulking Mu, but Durahan refuses to sacrifice any more troops, proving that even anime villains have a budget cap. The manipulative little fairy Lilim calms him down before Durahan releases his new squad of soulless robots to do the dirty work. Far away, our Sagi heroes are hiding behind a waterfall, with Tiger cursing out Suezo because the giant eye's teleportation skill is about as useful as a fork for eating soup. Hare then pulls a genius plan out of nowhere and flashes that creepy smile at Genki. The master plan involves Genki putting on Holly's clothes to pull off a questionable cosplay and act as bait, allowing the real girl to escape riding on Tiger. But the dress-up game ends when Lilim intercepts the blue feline, steals the magic stone, and plants a wet kiss on the jewel before dipping. She temporarily halts the robots, and when a weed asks for the stone, she simply slices the poor guy's fingers off, revealing that Durahan wants to siphon all the stone's power for himself. Lilim then orders her machines to run everyone over, but the fingerless weed uses his last drop of energy to destroy the main robot, shutting down the entire fleet and ruining the fairy's fun. Genki still tries to play the tough guy against Lilim, but she swings him around like a sack of potatoes until Tiger comes to rescue the kid. Lilim blows a mocking goodbye kiss to the squad of losers and vanishes into the wind with the stone. While Durahan sits in his iron bird calculating how he's going to use the stone to get huge without the boss finding out, Lilim smirks in the corner. She clearly has much naughtier plans to play with this stone all by herself. Durahan and his suspiciously motivated assistant Lilim hold the magic stone with the clear intention of double-crossing Boss Mu. Meanwhile, the group of useless heroes crowds around Suezo, who is trying to force a teleportation to the villain's ship, but failing miserably dozens of times as if he's playing on a 1000 ms ping. Mu approaches Durahan smoothly to hand over the stone, but at the first opportunity, tries to stab his own boss in the back. Unfortunately, Durahan's armor is too hollow to come up with a decent plan, and Mu easily repels the attack, breaking his own life support machine in the process. In a fit of blind rage, Mu yanks his own tubes out like you ripping the power cord from the wall and chases after the traitor. When Durahan reaches his ship's cabin, the place is in pieces, and his own troops have switched sides to lick Mu's boots. Lilim, proving she's the biggest gold digger in the universe, says she prefers big, strong men, ditching Durahan for the muscular villain. But Tinhead isn't entirely stupid and reveals he gave her a fake explosive stone, holding the real one in his hands. Just as the circus catches fire, Suezo's lag finally clears and he teleports our heroes straight into the enemy ship. Durahan starts mercilessly beating everyone down until Mochi charges up on his friend's energy and fires his cannon, unleashing a massive white beam that engulfs the villain and snaps his sword in half. Amidst the chaos, Lilim takes the chance to grab the real stone and sets the ship to explode in 5 minutes. Tiger the cat pounces on her, making the traitor drop the jewel, which ends up being snatched by some random lackey who jumps out of the ship. With everything up in flames, Suezo magically works again and gets the crew out of there. Durahan, in a final act of a scorned loser, impales the traitorous fairy with his broken sword before the entire ship crashes into a mountain and turns to dust. Without the stone in their pockets, the 2-bit heroes just accept their defeat and keep walking north, hoping some legendary bird will fix their lives. The horde of useless weeds finally finishes jury-rigging the final gate, injecting the magic stone into the machine and giving Mu the ultimate layer of sunscreen. Now the generic villain is invincible even against sunlight, but the gate explodes in the process because villains don't read instruction manuals. With nothing left to do at home, Mu decides to hunt down the little group of failed heroes. Meanwhile, our favorite deadbeats arrive at a village led by Jill, who offers a free dinner and decides to drop some heavy lore on the table to justify the meal. He tells the tragic and bizarre tale of the Firebird, who solved the problem of the starving demon Skullcap by simply offering its own body to be devoured. The demon was so moved by the free meal that he gave up his life of crime, and the bird was reborn as the Phoenix. Hare, always the cynic of the group, points out that if it were Mu eating the cosmic roast chicken, the story wouldn't end with a hug and an apology. Jill decides that the squad of misfits is the world's true hope and drags everyone to a frozen valley, revealing the body of the Phoenix trapped in a giant ice cube. Everything seems perfect, except for the tiny detail that they have absolutely no idea where the beast's soul is. But because when it rains, it pours, Mu appears out of nowhere to ruin the camping trip. Instead of playing it safe, Mochi, proving his bubblegum brain can't process danger, starts bragging at the top of his lungs that they found the Phoenix. Thanks to this pink idiot, the group now has to protect a giant chicken popsicle while trying not to be incinerated by Holly's dad. The morning sprint for survival continues with Mu playing target practice, shooting flames that blow open craters and forcing our pathetic protagonist to dance around like dizzy cockroaches. The Dark Lord finds this humiliation absolutely hilarious, spreading his wings and landing right in front of them just to rub in their faces that he knows exactly where the Phoenix is hidden. Completely ignoring Genki's shrill cries for attention, the big monster turns his back and marches toward the frozen chicken. The group decides to commit tactical suicide and charges ahead, leaving Holly behind because Golem and Suezo know she's useless in a physical fight. Genki and his 5 mascots block the path, earning roaring laughter from the villain. Then the kid injects a massive dose of friendship steroids into the team, channeling a bizarre beam of energy from the sky that recharges everyone's guts. They unleash a colossal combo attack, mixing a bubblegum cannon, rabbit punch, wolf beam, rock smash, and a literal side-eye whip. The explosion is season finale worthy, but when the smoke clears, Mu is there, completely intact and bored. He retaliates with a spit of fire that blasts everyone away, before conjuring a purple bubble the size of a hamster ball to trap Genki. But just when all seemed lost, a lightning bolt strikes the villain's ugly mug, forcing him to drop the terror bubble. Pixie swoops down from the sky, grabbing the protagonist mid-air, but she didn't come to the party alone. Falcon and the pirate dragons come flying in, carrying the Blue Mountain on a makeshift swing and unloading a rain of fire onto Mu's face. While Genki is tossed onto Falcon's back, Pixie reveals that the rest of the show's forgotten extras are actually doing something useful too. Far away, Captain Horn, Eddie, Jim, and the rest of the supporting cast are busy beating the crap out of generic rock and slime goons all over the world, proving that even the useless ones are good for clearing the map. While Mu continues his temper tantrum, destroying everything, the dragons enter Mount Kairos only to find out that the final gate has been reduced to rubble. The talking block, Monal, is stuck in an ice cube, complaining that the magic stone is gone, but Falcon solves this problem by thawing out the gossipy boulder just in time to escape the villain's fury. When the group gathers for a doom and gloom status update, Monal drops the biggest narrative bomb of the entire series right in everyone's faces. Turns out the Phoenix's soul was sliced into 5 pieces and stuffed right inside Mochi, Suezo, Golem, Tiger, and Hare. Yep, the whole group was basically a bunch of feathered Horcruxes this entire time, and the magic stone just served as a glorified GPS to get the band together. To make matters worse, Monal warns them that the only way to awaken the mythical bird is to fuse the 5 mascots with the frozen body, meaning they might simply cease to exist. Without a machine to do the dirty work, the responsibility falls squarely on the protagonist's courage. Cheered on by Holly, the dragons, and the rest of their allies, the 5 monsters get their dramatic farewell scene, staring deep into the kid's eyes before merging into the Phoenix's soul. The cosmic chicken finally thaws out, stretches its wings, and heads out for the ultimate bar brawl against Mu. During the exchange of godly punches, the group keeps pumping courage into the Phoenix like an external power bank. The Phoenix then locks the Dark Lord in a death hug, making Mu realize this cat and mouse game would last an eternity. In a bizarre stroke of enlightenment, the villain accepts that neither of them can exist. They self-destruct in a blinding explosion of light that wipes the evil marks off the entire world, turning all aggressive goons into upstanding citizens and converting the lost discs into unlocked loot. With the world saved and no more monsters to enslave in arena battles, the system decides playtime is over and ejects the useless protagonist back into the real world, closing the tab and calling it a day. Holly finally rubs Mochi's mystery disc enough to release the pink blob back into the world, and the two wander through the rain like two beggars looking for their lost friends. But just as Holly starts hearing her absentee dad's voice out in the boondocks, a lightning bolt strikes from the sky, revealing a glowing rock stamped with the Evil Squad's logo. Mochi quickly grabs Moo's stone, but before they can celebrate, three useless shapeshifters pop out of nowhere, desperate to get their hands on the villain's artifact. To protect the coveted little rock, Mochi decides the best combat tactic is suicide and simply throws himself off a cliff. He lands in a shrine, but the lackeys catch up to the blob, beat the poor guy mercilessly, and steal the magical prize. The idiots try rubbing the stone non-stop to release Moo's giant spirit, but they are so incompetent that the spell fails miserably. In a moment of distraction caused by the villain's negative IQ, Mochi reclaims his rock, only to realize he's completely impotent and can't launch a single attack. Desperate, he screams for Genki, who is living his useless otaku life in the real world and is suddenly sucked back into this pixelated hellhole. The protagonist falls to the ground, teams up with the pink bubblegum, and together they beat the shapeshifters to a pulp until the poor losers run crying to their mommy. With the dynamic duo reunited, they head back to Holly and set out to find the rest of the zoo they call friends. While a cat girl brushes her hair in front of the mirror, a gossipy lackey warns her that a bunch of brats are walking around with the evil stone. The door opens to reveal Durahan, who, after having his ship blown up in his face, has been reduced to a pathetic severed head plugged into a glorified blender. Surrounded by his new henchwomen, the big-headed villain plans to swallow Moo's spirit to become the most buffed monster in the universe, and sends a slime named Pink Jam to steal the rock. Meanwhile, Holly goes on a hallucinogenic trip staring at the stone and sees her dad's spirit fighting Moo's demonic possession. The girl knows there's a way to trap the villain and save her dad, but since the stone monolith that serves as their tutorial decided to take an eternal nap, she has absolutely no idea how to do it. Genki and his gang arrive in a random town and are immediately harassed by an overly excited stone master wanting to fight in a local tournament. Down the same street, Golem and Suezo are embarrassing themselves juggling for spare change, with the giant eyeball wearing drag queen makeup and painting himself blue like a deformed Smurf to see if he can attract any paying perverts. Watching the monster cockfights, Genki and company see that the prize is a fat stack of cash and a mystery disc. Mochi, thirsty for power, decides to become a professional gladiator to win the prize for Holly. After passing some pathetic trials, the two become official members of the Fight Club. Looking for a cheap motel to crash, they literally stumble over the ocular freak and the stone giant, while the evil pink slime keeps wandering lost through the city, and Durahan's tin head dreams of world domination, despite having no legs to stand on. The entire zoo, now reunited, marches into the city of Kolat to enter the rookie tournament, with Mochi trying to train hard, even though his only move is a pathetic headbutt called Monta. When signing the paperwork, the incompetent receptionist drops the prize mystery disc on the floor. Holly touches the rock and immediately smells the wet dog scent of tiger trapped inside. Determined to free his furry friend, Mochi enters the ring, dusting a purple knockoff Suezo right off the bat and then squashing a living salad in the second round. In the grand finale, he faces a monster named Muddy, who is actually the slime Pink Jam wearing a hideous cosplay after beating up the real competitor in a dark alley like a common thug. The disguised lackey starts mercilessly pummeling the pink blob, using Mochi as a punching bag and pushing him to his limit. Fueled by the power of plot armor, he focuses all his pink chakra and obliterates Pink Jam with a devastating double strike that flattens the villain onto the dirty arena floor. But just when defeat seems certain, Mochi hears the seductive whispers of the Blue Wolf echoing from the prize stone. The tournament's annoying referee threatens to disqualify our team of heroes for beating up an imposter nobody bothered to background check, but the real Muddy pops up out of nowhere in his underwear saying it's all good and willingly lets them keep the prize. With cash in their pockets and the special item in hand, Genki and the crew vigorously rub the victorious stone, resurrecting the emo wolf from the depths back into the real world and making the bizarre squad finally whole again.
You know how much I hate that mushy kissing and hugging stuff.
Tiger is dealing with a serious case of magical dysfunction, swinging his paws without firing a single shot and proving to be completely useless when it counts. While the Tin Can General Durahan sends some zebra-striped dinosaurs to hunt down the group, Tiger bumps into Dayton and Dayton Air, two old pack buddies. To celebrate the reunion, they decide to steal some mangoes, only to face plant into a trap set by none other than Hare. Turns out the Sly Rabbit has become the sugar baby of a girl named Tama, who cured him a year ago, and now he's paying off his debt by working on her farm. The group decides Hare should stay behind to weed the girl's lot, but before leaving, the rabbit whispers a golden piece of advice to Tiger regarding his lack of magical potency. Soon after, Tama tearfully kicks Hare out, forcing the rabbit to have an existential crisis on top of a watchtower. From up there, he sees the zebra dinosaurs cornering his former friends in a valley. The zebra captain demands the mystery disc, and since everyone there is dead weight except for Golem, a beatdown is guaranteed. The stone giant tries to tank all enemy fire alone to protect Holly, until Tiger remembers Hare's absurd advice. If you can't do it right, just fake it, just like your ex. Tiger yells that he's going to launch a massive blizzard, causing the zebras to panic long enough for him to run everybody over with his own body. But the enemy captain is a coward and grabs Holly from behind a rock as a hostage. Just as Genki is about to hand over the disc, Hare dives from the tower like a furry missile and sinks a dragon punch straight into the captain's face. The villain gets up crying, claims he's going to use his invincible attack, and simply runs for his life. In the end, Thomas shows up with a scarf and fresh mangoes, officially firing Hare so he can go back to hunting bad guys, while Tiger's useless buddies agree to stay at the farm working for free in his place. Our favorite homeless squad is starving to death in the forest, while Durahan dispatches an army of drill tusks to hunt for their heads. Mochi finds some giant potatoes and tries to pull them out, but since he's a weak pile of jelly, a buffed gorilla named Wandar rips the massive vegetables out for him. This colossal farmer and his older brother cook up a stew for the gang, and the senior brother reveals his plan to force the youngest to fight in a deadly tournament. Since Genki's mouth is bigger than his brain, he bets that Mochi will win the championship, forcing an impromptu underground fight right then and there. The young Wandar doesn't want to fight, but his strength is so absurd that he almost crushes our pink blob with a giant boulder, shielding Mochi at the very last second with his own hand. Mochi smothers the big guy with affection, and the gorilla confesses that he hates violence and just wants to grow his veggies in peace. But when Holly drops the mystery disc, the older brother's eyes sparkle with greed. At night, he spikes the gang's stew with a solid dose of roofies, knocking everyone out cold on the ground. The senior Wandar steals the disc and forces his little brother to bury the item, guaranteeing that the group will miss the tournament while looking for this crap in the woods. The next morning, the drill tusks attack, and the gang finally realizes they've been robbed. Hare sniffs out the suspicious herbs in the empty pot, and the villains chase after the gorillas to steal the prize. The gang pursues the creature and arrives just in time to see the farmers getting squeezed. Mochi attacks to save his new friend, which causes the younger Wandar to snap in a fit of rage and crush the enemies to protect the pink bubblegum. After the group saves the older brother from getting sliced from behind, the gorillas dig up the disc. The big guy finally accepts that his little brother only gets off on planting cabbages, and the two hug it out in tears before heading back to the farm. The gang arrives in the desert town of Mandi to fight in the next tournament, and while Genki and Mochi work their asses off learning how to dodge, Tiger enters his unbearable alpha male mode. He refuses any defensive training, claiming that attacking is the only thing that matters, but when he tries to unleash his lightning attack, he simply fails. Much like you playing darts while drunk. On registration day, Holly lists Genki as the trainer for both of them, whether the blue wolf likes it or not. Tiger faces another wolf in the first round, and settles it with a single suicidal knockout, feeding his useless ego even more. Soon after, Mochi resorts to the time-honored technique of running for his life, dodges a living tree, and defeats it by hurling himself straight into the plant.
No white birch!
In the finals, they face a pitiful-looking trainer who hides an arsenal of dirty tricks. Tiger goes up against a bizarre snail that simply retreats into its armored shell every time the wolf tries to scratch it. The mollusk spins like a runaway tire, unleashes a powerful blast of air that sweeps Tiger away, then fires a perfect lightning bolt, knocking our arrogant wolf out cold on the floor and rubbing his first brutal defeat in his face. With the score tied, Mochi steps into the ring against a knockoff penguin that pulls a hidden blade out of nowhere to slap our blob. But after building up energy by absorbing the damage defensively, Mochi vomits out another cherry blossom blizzard, tying the game and forcing a sudden deathmatch. Tiger, his ego finally shattered, returns for the tiebreaker against the snail. This time, he uses the defensive little dances he ignored in training, tanks an epic beating of lightning bolts, and starts glowing with absurd energy. Absorbing all the impact into himself, he dubs himself Tornado Tiger, unleashing a colossal electric attack that shatters the snail's shell and steals the victory. As they celebrate with the trophy, the new General Leela mocks the lackey's incompetence at Mu's fortress, forcing the Dark Lord to promise that his next employee won't fail. Mu wakes up with her hair looking like a used broom and decides to take her frustration out on humanity, letting Durahan know that she sent a goon to fetch the disc back. Meanwhile, the hustler Rabbit Hair gets his bag stolen by a random mutt, which ironically leads him to reunite with his old friend, Fairy Hair. Nostalgia hits hard, and the rabbit remembers the golden days when he, she, and Wild Hair formed a gang of furry Robin Hoods, stealing from bad guys to give back to the folks. But reality knocks on the door when they realize the fairy rabbit doesn't have a single crumb to feed the local kids. Out of nowhere, Wild Hair bumps into them in the middle of the street, completing the long-eared trinity. The newly arrived rogue lets them know the villain's warehouse is loaded with supplies, so the trio decides to pull off a midnight heist. But since intelligence isn't the family's strong suit, they fall straight into a trap of black weeds and get stuck like idiots. The hyperactive protagonist and his troupe come running to save the day, and Holly, in an act of desperation, trades the mystery disc for the rabbit's freedom. A second later, Hair tries to lunge and snatch the disc back, but is blindsided by the biggest soap opera plot twist of the season. Wild Hair takes his own friend hostage and reveals the villain's brand on his body. After an intensive therapy session and some classic talk no jutsu, in the middle of the battlefield, Hair and Fairy Hair convince the traitor to ditch the life of crime. Genki uses the emotional opening to retrieve the disc, Hair gives a dramatic little wave to his childhood friends, and the group simply moves on with their lives toward the next disaster. Mu strikes again as the evil GPS and snitches on the team's location near the beach, making the scrapped robot Durahan dispatch an army of jelly gaboos, which are basically flabby, dangerous slimes. While Holly embarrasses herself trying to chat up a disc in hopes her dad will reply, the giant flying eyeball Suezo spots an abandoned pier. Tiger decides to play Blue Pikachu and shoots a lightning bolt into the water, electrocuting the enemy slimes and kicking off a full-blown coastal brawl. In the middle of the beatdown, a random cannonball hits the spot, sending everyone flying and knocking the mystery disc right out of Holly's hands and straight to the bottom of the ocean. The hyperactive protagonist and the pink blob Mochi dive in alongside the villains to grab the item, but get chased out of the water by a damn submarine. A grumpy old man named Gordish pops out of the hatch, puffing and huffing, accusing the kids of trying to steal his treasure. Employing the good old tactic of child labor, the group promises to wash clothes and clean up for the boomer in exchange for a submarine ride. The next morning, Gordish, Holly, Genki, and Mochi cram into the metallic sardine can and navigate to an underwater cave, finding not only the disc but a shipwrecked pirate ship. The problem is that the pursuing slimes swim right in after them, turning the cave into a wrestling ring for the treasure. Tired of playing games, Mochi decides to settle things by charging up his famous pink cannon, swallowing the enemies, and obliterating the competition once and for all. Ultimately, the treasure goes down the drain, but at least they get the relic back and escape before becoming fish food. The troop of loafers arrives in the city of Padas, just in time for the Grand M1 Grand Prix. This time, 3 monsters have to sweat it out in the arena, and the lucky ones are Mochi, Golem, and the walking eyeball Suezo. But the giant eye has the same work ethic as you on a Monday morning, deciding to ditch training to go stroll around town while dumping all the responsibility on his friend's shoulders. Wandering the streets, he catches 3 giant, idiotic flies named Fly Eyes, stealing the autograph cards of a furry little Suezo pup. The young fan was crying over his idol Poritoka's special autograph, so our lazy eye decides to play hero and gets the stuff back. At the exact same moment, Golem manages the feat of losing his arena fight. But life ain't easy, and right when Suezo goes to return the card to the kid, the wing goons come back, beat him up, and steal the paper again. Back at the tournament, Mochi's pink blob saves the day by massacring a Gaboo. The problem is that the tiebreaker match lands right in the lap of Suezo, who shows up at the stadium almost late and looking like he got hit by a truck. To make his humiliation even worse, his final opponent is a damn Zilla, basically a discount Godzilla ready to squash him like a grape. The eyeball takes a severe beating and is about to accept defeat and public humiliation when he hears the shrill cheers of the furry Suezo pup rooting for him in the audience. Feeling that cheap nostalgia of his own youth hitting him hard in the chest, he swallows his tears, pulls strength from the great beyond, and magically turns the game around at the last second, crushing the giant reptile and securing the tournament victory to rub in everyone's faces. Our favorite bunch of loafers is stuffing their faces at a restaurant while looking for a cab. A random driver tries to extort the crew, but Sandra, a female driver who is reading the newspaper and chewing gum with the exact same enthusiasm you have for living, decides to intervene by spitting her gum straight into the guy's face. With the free market in action, Sandra charges 700 gold coins to take the gang through the swamp. Since Golem is an absurdly fat stone colossus, he rides in the back trailer while Suezo, Mochi, and Tiger fight over the window like spoiled kids in the back seat. Halfway there, Sandra parks on an island and decides to double down, demanding more money. Mochi tries to calm things down by singing, but the pink critter's voice is so terrible that Sandra feels like ripping her own ears off and hikes the price up to 1,000 gold. They accept the extortion, but suddenly, a pack of living Jurassic rock plates attacks. Sandra floors the gas pedal, drifts through the forest, and ends up getting hurt before stranding the car on a tiny island. The rebel refuses treatment, but Holly ignores her tantrum, tends to her wounded shoulder, and vents about her suicidal plan to rescue her dad. Sandra finds the loyalty cute and also pours her heart out about her own old man. The trip resumes, but the stone dinosaurs return to try and turn our heroes into mashed potatoes. Golem and Tiger try to crush the creatures, but the situation spirals out of control and the main group jumps to the trailer. In an act of pure insanity, Sandra rams the cab full speed into the monsters, sinking her own car into the swamp. The trailer breaks loose. Holly grabs Sandra's hand, but the monster leader grabs her leg, trying to drag the driver down the hole. Thanks to strikes from Suezo and Tiger, Sandra escapes becoming fertilizer. They reach the other side, and to prove she actually has a beating heart under that jacket, she refuses payment, telling Holly to never give up before vanishing into the horizon. The hyperactive protagonist spends the entire night scribbling a foolproof plan to make the group invincible, proving that his delusion knows no bounds. But first thing in the morning, a giant wooden monster sent by Durahan shows up to test his theory. Suezo, Tiger, and the others look at the kid's genius plan, deem it complete garbage, and go fight their own way, getting their asses handed to them miserably like a bunch of idiots. Trying to save the day, Mochi fires his massive cannon, but the walking tree loses its balance and falls, sending all three of them drifting down the river. The useless duo wakes up being rescued by Alan's giant worms. Genki is touched to see the boy stopped being a sociopath and immediately starts babbling about his perfect battle tactics. Alan, wanting to prove a point, pits his baby worm against Mochi. The protagonist's pink mascot tries to follow the manual to the letter, dancing back and forth, but ends up eating dirt when the baby worm beats the absolute crap out of him without mercy. Alan gathers his worms and leaves, but not before rubbing it in the protagonist's face that a good heart and a brave spirit are worth far more than a piece of paper full of useless scribbles. Meanwhile, Holly and the rest of the team keep running in circles looking for the lost pair, until the wooden golem returns thirsty for revenge and corners everybody. Just when all seems lost and the gang is accepting their end, Genki and Mochi pop out of nowhere with renewed confidence and beat the piece of wood until it runs crying back into the forest. Our ragtag bunch of drifters arrives in the town of Pari Pari to enter yet another monster fighting tournament, but Mochi decides to catch a fever and goes straight to the hospital. There, the big rock guy Golem ends up meeting a little girl named Michelle and her dad. The guy pulls the pity card, claiming his daughter is gravely ill and needs a 5,000 gold coin surgery he can't afford. Golem, proving he's got rocks for brains but a heart of gold, begs his friends to let him use the tournament prize money to cure the girl. The championship rules only allow Mochi and Golem to enter the arena. Golem flattens his first opponent with the ease of squashing a bug, but when it's Mochi's turn to fight the noble gel, Genki realizes his pink pet can barely stand and pulls him from the competition before he turns into jelly. In the finals, Golem has to face that same noble gel, and things get ugly. The mountain of rock takes a ruthless beating and ends up swallowed by the enemy's disgusting bubble, nearly losing all hope inside that tight squeeze. But upon seeing Michelle cheering for him in the stands, Golem activates the power of friendship, spins into a brutal brutal tornado attack tears the bubble apart and yeets his opponent out of existence, securing the title. Crying imaginary tears, he hands all the prize money over to the girl's father, feeling like he just saved a life. The catch is, shortly after, the group finds out at the hospital that there's no patient named Michelle. Golem was played for a fool by a pint-sized scammer just like you when you fall for internet clickbait. At least the brat left half the cash behind, proving that even con artists have a shred of pity for a depressed rock.
It under there? Yeah, I found it. It's our money.
At the evil base, Durahan keeps demanding that damn stone while Mum Mew forces poor Gobi to take cute photos, uncovering a newspaper clipping of Pink Jam getting his butt kicked by Mochi in the past. Speaking of that washed-up pink slime, Pink Jam and the Blue Mutants are trying to work as waiters. But since their food tastes like garbage juice and they have the charisma of a doorknob, the boss kicks them all to the curb. Utterly miserable, the slime goes back to his favorite hobby, stacking pebbles. Genki and his crew of slackers stumble upon this gang of starving monsters and decide to throw a community feast. While the heroes prep the grub, Pink Jam snoops around Holly's bag and comes face to face with the mysterious stone. The temptation to stick his hands where they don't belong and bring the toy to Durahan makes the devil and angel on his shoulders duke it out until the moral overload fries his gelatinous brain and he passes out cold on the floor. The next day, their peaceful journey is rudely interrupted by the Tombstone brothers, who toss the heroes off a cliff. Proving they aren't totally useless, the Blue Mutants turn into parachutes and save the gang from becoming roadkill. During the frantic brawl, the Tombstones pin the heroes down with a scythe attack, but Pink Jam and the Blues fire a bizarre laser deep into the enemies, taking the stone back by force. The power of friendship and ass-kicking is so strong that the evil markers literally melt right off the slime's foreheads. With the Tombstones yeeted away, Pink Jam and his crew say thanks for the free food and bounce off happily to stack some more pebbles. The hero squad hits the ocean, and Golem nearly wets his rocky pants just looking at the water. While Genki promises a giant boat to calm the big scaredy cat, that useless Mum Mew proves she'll fall for any online scam by testing out a magic corset that promises weight loss. The piece of junk snaps, flies right into Poison's face, and leaves Durahan laughing at her misery as he greenlights the plan to capture the heroes at sea. In town, our protagonists find Captain Horn getting tossed out of a bar for trying to get wasted on juice. The drunk pirate stretches out his massive tongue to grab Holly, begging for a kiss, but Suezo smashes his head with a well-deserved frying pan. The horned weirdo confesses his ship was stolen and offers them a tiny raft that can barely support the weight of his own dignity. In the middle of nowhere, Horn makes up a ghost story about a giant phantom ship, and the universe decides to punish his lying by making that exact vessel spawn right in front of them. It's the captain's own stolen ship. They board the deck thinking they're tough guys, but a bunch of ghosts beat the absolute crap out of the crew without mercy, splitting into miniatures and turning invisible. The heroes are tied up in the hull like sitting ducks. Horn tries to use his hard horn to free Holly, but only manages to penetrate the floorboards before finally cutting the ropes and trying to shove his tongue down the girl's throat again, getting brutally rejected. Wezo and Horn use teleportation to spy on the ghosts and discover they plan to crash the ship into a reef, with death by drowning knocking at their door. Suezo remembers his species' lethal weapon. He opens his mouth and unleashes the worst singing the world has ever heard, torturing both friend and foe alike. Horn wakes up from his acoustic coma, only to start singing along in a duet straight out of hell. The ghosts flee in terror to escape this auditory torture. With the ship reclaimed, they arrive at their destination. Back at the villain's lair, Mum Mew wastes her boss's time brushing her fur while Durahan announces he sent poison to seduce a former employee back to the dark side. Far away from this corporate gossip, Genki and Mochi decide to sign up for the Monster World Cup, but the annoying rulebook requires a specific tag team partner. A random Gaboo tries to turn Genki into a snack, but out of absolute nowhere, Naga rises from the ashes. The monster who used to love a good massacre has now become a well of moral purity and decides to enter the tournament to rub his newfound goodness in everyone's faces. Mochi and Naga wipe the floor with their opponents until they reach the grand finale, coming face to face with Gali and Sandy. Gali is also playing the saint without the evil marker on his forehead, but the script makes it clear that Poison has been whispering in his ear behind the scenes. While Mochi claps Sandy with the ease of kneading dough, Naga takes a humiliating beating from Gali. To make matters worse, Sandy starts firing illegal lasers from outside the ring, and the referee plays blind just like you ignoring your credit card bill. Just as Naga is about to bite the dust, Suezo decides to transfer all his pulsating milky energy to the ex-villain. Pumped up on this delicious power, Naga crushes Gali's solar knuckles and kicks him out of the ring with a mystic blast. taking the trophy home. Pissed off by the result, Poison pops out of the bushes with her goons, ready to pull a cowardly ambush on the heroes. But Golly, proving that the Monster Penal System's rehabilitation program actually works, spills her entire plan and ruins the party. He never agreed to go back to the dark side, leaving Poison looking like an idiot before she flees desperately into the woods empty-handed. The squad of slackers decides to take a day off at an amusement park, where our pink gumball named Mochi meets a hustler named Nyankuro, who claims to be the protege of the legendary Most and albino Mochi. Wanting to lick his idol's boots, Mochi begs for an introduction, but the con artist demands 10,000 gold coins for VIP access, leaving our pink critter empty-handed because he's as broke as you are. During the night, thugs kidnap Mochi and a whole gang of his species. When our gumball wakes up, he tries to play hero by attacking the goons, but ends up embarrassing himself on the floor after inhaling sleeping gas. At that exact moment, the real Most appears out of nowhere to save the day, sending the kidnappers running with their tails between their legs. Mochi follows his white hero and begs for training, and they go after the thugs to teach them a lesson. But the cowards use a hostage, forcing Mochi to remember his master's advice to unleash the great tag team Musama technique, annihilating the trash once and for all. With the goons on the floor, everyone celebrates the pink ball as a great hero, but Most mysteriously vanishes. When Genki's useless team finally shows up late, Mochi tries to show off the new move he learned by rubbing bodies with the master, but he flops miserably and absolutely nothing happens. It leaves everyone looking dumbfounded while the real Most watches from afar, pitying the secondhand embarrassment. In the villain's lair, Mum Yu tries to unfreeze a buff, handsome warrior, but ends up pulling the wrong lever and unleashing Durahan's worst nightmare, a creepy old guy in armor named Shogun. The fool had been frozen in the past because he tried to grope Lelam's curves, slipped on the ice like a clown, and fell into the freezing water. Mum Mew thinks he's perfect for her and starts hitting on him, but he says he wants a beautiful cat and bluntly calls her a wrinkly old cat to her face. She loses her patience, corners him, and the useless fool ends up falling into the river again. The water washes the old man right up to our jobless heroes, who fish the poor bastard out. But the old geezer seizes the chance to grab Holly's hand, only to be immediately punished by Suezo, who uses his massive tongue to whip the pervert. Shogun lies, claiming to be the deadliest warrior in the universe, feeding the whole team his bogus story. But when a Zoom lackey steals Hare's bag, the heroes beat the absolute crap out of the thief, making Shogun realize they are the threat he was supposed to annihilate. He summons his ultimate lightning technique, but his sword is so flimsy it breaks, and he ends up dizzy on the ground from spinning without hitting anyone. Mum Mew shows up with an army to finish the job, cornering the group, but the old pervert finally decides to be useful. With a random wooden stick, he channels a bizarre aura and massacres all the enemies in the blink of an eye, proving he still knows how to handle his rod with mastery, before walking off into the sunset like a mystical hobo. The team enters a tag team tournament where our angsty blue wolf decides to play the lone hero and runs off to a ravine to train. There, he bumps into his brother Grey Wolf, who has finally been resurrected by an overly clingy human named Nina. The girl spends the whole time hugging the giant monster's neck in a super awkward way, while he tries to keep his tough guy act up in front of his brother. Things turn into a telenovela drama when Grey Wolf admits he finally knows what love and affection are. The Blue Wolf ruins the mood by declaring they are now mortal enemies, and that there is no family on the battlefield, breaking his little brother's heart with his excess of testosterone and teen angst. The next day, the tournament begins with Mochi throwing hands and pulling off a hard-fought tie, leaving the weight of the world on Tiger's furry shoulders, who steps into the arena against his own blood. In the middle of an all-out brawl of bites and headbutts, that useless henchman Weed sneaks into the stands and shoots a bunch of seeds to assassinate Grey Wolf from behind. But Tiger steps in, deflects the attack, and Mochi fires a beam straight into that damn plant's face, blowing the trash out of the stadium and leaving a hole in the wall. With that pathetic interruption out of the way, the brothers decide to settle their family issues by sinking their horns into each other in a head-on collision. Both fall flat on their backs, but Tiger gets up first, watching his brother try to stand before passing out for good with his eyes rolled back. The Blue Wolf wins the tournament, pockets the prize, and walks away wagging his tail, pretending he doesn't care about anyone, definitively proving that brotherly love is best resolved with brutal violence. Our protagonists gather to drool over the medals they've won, entirely focused on winning the next tournament. Meanwhile, at the evil base, Mum Mew tries to justify wearing pajamas in front of her boss, Durahan, who couldn't care less about her lame excuse and tells her he's already sent a professional assassin to do the dirty work. In the middle of the forest, the starving heroes stumble upon a mysterious feast just lying on the ground. Proving he has a negative IQ, Suezo dives straight for the food and falls into a pathetic pit trap. Mew and his jellygoons show up thinking they're criminal masterminds, but Tiger and Genki obliterate the creatures, sending one of them flying right into the spine of a random old lady named Rosetta. Feeling guilty, Golem carries the grumpy old lady back to her restaurant. She bakes a pizza so ridiculously delicious that even the goth wolf Tiger breaks character, runs to the edge of a cliff, and screams at the sunset with his mouth full of cheese. Golem decides to become a chef, and Rosetta teaches the rock monster how to knead his sticky white dough, revealing that the secret is a special mushroom liquid. Naturally, the villains overhear everything, steal the magic flask, and demand the hero's mystery disc in exchange for it. Genki rides to the rescue and hands over a rock-hard cookie Holly baked. Mew takes a bite, thinks it's amazing, and only realizes he's been played for a fool when the heroes glow with a pink aura of hatred and smash the trap. Tiger blasts a lightning bolt that fries the useless cat, sending him running away. The old woman flies back to the kitchen, squirts the secret liquid onto the pizza, and serves it to the judges a millisecond before the contest timer runs out. The old lady wins the gold medal, throws a chef's hat at Golem's face, and kicks everyone out so she can finally get a minute of peace. Durahan wakes up in a good mood and summons Metainer, a disgusting alien parasite that takes over minds. Far away, Golem is making a highly suspicious soup when an army of henchmen attacks the group out of nowhere. But before they even get their hands dirty, Pixie tears through the sky and humiliates the monsters, proving to everyone she's still alive and ready to smack down fools. After spending the night gossiping about the past, Metainer grabs the back of Pixie's neck, knocking her unconscious, then hacks into her brain to force her to steal the magic stone. The group wakes up to find the demoness trying to steal the disc, forcing Suezo to teleport the team away. The escape lasts a grand total of 2 seconds, because Pixie pops up and starts beating up the rabbit. The giant eyeball spots the gross amoeba stuck to her, so Genki runs up and forcefully grabs the woman. Without wasting a second, he tries to snap her back to reality. She almost snaps back to normal, but the parasite squeezes her neurons and forces her to choke the kid out. Just as Genki is about to bite the dust from lack of oxygen, the ghost of the blue giant who died for her decides to give a motivational speech straight from the afterlife. The voice of the one-man army gives Pixie the strength to rip the bug off her neck and pass out on the ground from exhaustion. Without wasting a single second, the entire group forms a mosh pit and beats the absolute crap out of the parasite until it runs away with its tail between its legs. Pixie wakes up, says thanks for the mild concussion, and walks away pretending this whole embarrassing fiasco never happened. Mum Mew and her gang of losers discover that Holly wants the tournament stone to get her dad out of that disc prison. In a desperate attempt to use her brain for the first time in her life, the cat draws up a wanted poster of the protagonists, offering a 10,000 gold coin reward. The plan miraculously works, as our heroes fall for the oldest trick in the book and drink some spiked juice at a hotel, passing out instantly like they had a massive hangover. The hotel owner calls demanding the cash, but since Mum Mew is dead broke, the mercenary manager simply transforms the entire building into a literal tank and tries to run the villains over. Crying in despair, she promises to pay him back, and the trio runs off to rob a local bank. When they get there, a professional thief is already cleaning out the vault and makes the fatal mistake of calling Mum Mew an ugly hag. Fueled by pure feminine rage, she obliterates the guy's monsters and accidentally saves the entire town from the robbery. The mayor hands the 10,000 coin reward to the villain, who runs back sweating to pay off her debt to the hotel owner. They rush up to the room to finally capture the kids, only to find the beds empty because the group had already woken up from the knockout juice and bounced. The idiots return to Evil HQ, handing Durahan a thank you letter from the mayor. Durahan decides to ignore his subordinate's pathetic failure and focuses on the fact that at least now, he knows what the prize for the next tournament is. The group finds out that the pink bubblegum ball Mochi needs to crush a rich snob named Poritoka and the champion Most to get their hands on the grand trophy. Since Poritoka is literally just a giant floating eyeball of the same species as Suezo, our yellow Cyclops serves as a punching bag for their training, getting mercilessly punted to the sidelines. While looking for the enemy, they stumble upon Poritoka's own mansion. The guy immediately looks down on them, calls them all low-class losers, and spits painful truths right in the team's faces. Tired of the unwarranted humiliation, Suezo Suezo sneaks back to spy on the rich boy's tail whip technique, gets caught red-handed, and takes the biggest, most humiliating beating of his life. Masochism aside, he figures out the secret mechanics of the move, and everyone grinds themselves to the bone, training Mochi to exhaustion the night before the fight. Fight day arrives with the team looking like a bunch of run-over zombies. Mochi enters the arena against the elitist billiard ball under most watchful eye. Poritoka heavily spams his tail whip teleportation, vanishing so fast that the pink blob is left completely lost, getting beaten up by invisible air. But when Tiger and Suezo tell him to open his third eye of concentration, Mochi finally tracks the rich guy's movements. Without hesitation, he vomits a ruthless shower of cherry blossoms into his opponent's face and unleashes a colossal cannon right into his chest, sending the rich boy straight to Knockout City.
Can't be happening! Look out!
The albino champion appears out of nowhere right after, just to warn them that the beating he's going to give the bubblegum tomorrow will be historic. While the washed-up villains bicker in a corner to decide whose fault their own incompetence is, the team discovers that the almighty Most is playing hero at a charity fighting event. The buff albino effortlessly obliterates a stone dinosaur and a bound titan, quickly deciding that beating them up one at a time is no fun at all. He asks for 2 opponents at once and wipes the floor with their faces with his eyes closed, making everyone sweat cold, except for our pink bubblegum ball, who thinks the imminent risk of death is awesome. The next day, under a dramatic rainstorm, Most knocks on Mochi's door, politely suggesting the Pipsqueak forfeit the fight, telling a sinister bedtime story about how he once turned another monster exactly like him into a forgotten tombstone in the past. But Mochi has a fetish for taking a beating and refuses the offer. When the sun decides to come out, the massacre begins. Most dodges every childish charge and throws Mochi into the ground over and over, smashing his face in as if he were kneading bread dough. The beatdown gets so embarrassing that Genki has to transfer his own life energy just so the useless little monster doesn't pass out. Mochi fires his creamy white cannon at full power, only to swallow an aggressive shower of petals in response. Rejecting all common sense, the blob gets up, goes for an all-out slugfest, and incredibly manages to knock the supreme champion down with a punch, making the untouchable albino sweat with nerves for the first time. The two start firing explosive cannons at each other, blowing up the arena until night falls. After swapping so many aggressive battle fluids, Mochi's stamina finally bites the dust, and Most finishes the job, winning by knockout while the world watches the bubblegum sleep on the dirt. Far away, the Z-list villain squad tries to hijack Most's ship to steal the cup. They send their useless monster to crush the champion, but the albino simply flips the script and makes the goon almost turn his own bosses into mashed potatoes. As Most prepares to blast Mum Mew with his brutal cannon, the idiot cat screams for the magic stone in desperation, confessing their plan and ruining their disguise simultaneously. Poison throws a glorified explosive attack just to cover the trio's shameful escape. Mochi cries salty tears over not winning the magic stone, having no idea that the universe is about to drop the prize into his lap for free. Realizing that carrying that prize attracts radioactive trash to his doorstep, Most finds our team peacefully having coffee, crushes his own trophy with his bare hands, and tosses the pristine magic stone to them. As a bonus, he even gives them his private ship just to completely wash his hands of any headaches. During the victory flight, Suezo and Golem start fighting for space like 2 overgrown toddlers and almost flip the flying bathtub. To make the trip even worse, Durahan shows up out of nowhere, firing cannons with his floating fleet. Trying to fix their own previous stupidity, the Cyclops and the stone statue jump onto the enemy ship, utterly destroy the control panel using brute force alone, and teleport away, leaving the villain to sink in slow motion. They avoid crashing the ship into a mountain thanks to the Blue Wolf's instincts, and finally land at the sacred altar. Polly channels the stone's magic, watching her dad's soul beat the absolute crap out of Mu's gross spirit on the astral plane. She manages to pull the old man back, everyone cries rivers of tears, only for the plot to deliver the biggest slap in the face imaginable. Her dad lost absolutely all of his memories after spending months as the villain's meat puppet. Congratulations on your pointless journey, you saved a human potato.
Who are you, young one?
Huh?
I don't know. Where am I?
The squad of misfits is staring at Holly's dad, who is finally awake but has had his brain completely factory reset. The arrogant blue wolf suggests the amnesia is a total win, since the old man spent the last few years terrorizing and destroying the world as the Dark Lord's host. Holly herself almost agrees with this denial therapy, but our hyperactive protagonist yells that ignoring the past is ridiculous and they need to fix the problem. While the giant eyeball asks what the hell they're supposed to do with Mu's evil disc, the wolf suggests smashing it to pieces. Genki vetoes the idea, reminding them that doing so will just vomit the demonic soul back into the world, just like extracting a corrupted file. But before they can decide where to bury the problem, Weed snatches the disc and the magic stone in the blink of an eye. General Dorahan shows up acting like the genius of the hour, announcing his pathetic plan to suck up his old boss's essence to become the new top dog. The goons flee to a sanctuary to perform the unholy fusion, but the heroes kick the door down and launch the villains into the control panel, destroying the machine. This causes Mu's soul to swallow Dorahan whole without chewing, turning the floating armor into a buff Crimson Warrior cosplay called Ruby Knight. While the new monster wipes the floor with the team, Holly's dad is drawn by the presence of the old parasite. He gets a massive migraine in the middle of the arena, suffers a stroke of memories, and gets it all back at once, earning a hug from his daughter after years of abandonment. Wanting to clear his own honor, the old man steps up to the monster, but Mu gets annoyed and simply swallows everyone into absolute darkness. Inside the creature's astral stomach, they realize Durahan and his troop of incompetents didn't fuse with anything, they are just being slowly digested. Using the group's last collective brain cell, Holly's dad deduces that only the Phoenix has the firepower to take on Mu. The heroes vomit power into the arena, summon the Firebird, and engage in a colossal clash of flying souls. The Phoenix rips the villains out of the darkness, leaving Durahan confused as to why he's being saved. Genki hits him with a generic motivational speech about courage being greater than hatred, before fusing everyone into the Phoenix and steamrolling Mu's soul with an impact that disintegrates the Dark Lord forever. Back in the real world, the dust settles. The goons lose their evil marks. Durahan and Weed cry tears of joy upon getting their bodies back, and Mu's purifying dust rains down, fixing the entire world. Our protagonist is now an interdimensional tourist who uses CDs as revolving doors, bringing Mochi to the real world. Durahan and the former psychopaths become charity volunteers. Golem opens a pizzeria to feed jellies. Suedzo becomes an elementary school teacher, and Holly spends the rest of her life digging magical garbage out of the dirt with her dad, waiting for the protagonist to show up and mooch a free meal every now and then.